Hello and welcome to another episode of the Screen Chronicles. I'm Steve, and with me as always is Dunafash Griffin.
That's right. Dunafash was my birth name.
We're talking Outlander Season 1 today, Colby.
So we got really into The Last Kingdom, and as we started putting episodes out, people were kind of telling us, you guys should do Outlander too. I guess there's a lot of overlap between the fan bases, and we finally got to it. Steve got to it first, and he was like, actually, this is pretty good. You should watch this. And I just finished. And you know what? Yes, we agree with all of you Last Kingdom fans that recommended Outlander. And if there's any Last Kingdom fans that have not watched Outlander, you should give it a shot. Yeah. It was actually it was pretty fun watch. It's got some similarities with the historical aspects. It's a little bit more supernatural, but really enjoyable show.
Yeah. And before we get started here too, anyone, if you're new to the channel, make sure to give us a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you're listening on podcast, make sure to follow, sign up for the automatic downloads. But what we're going to be doing today, we're going to give you first a non-spoiler, some of our non-spoiler thoughts about the show, how we got into it, that sort of thing, a little review. And then after that, we're going to be all spoilers, and it's going to be a little bit of a recap, spoiler discussion as we're going there. So we'll let you know then when that's coming in, or we'll have the timestamp below.
Yes.
But anyway, like you said, we both enjoy it. And these are based on the books, too, quickly, by Diana Gabaldon. Gabaldon? Sorry for butchering your name.
Diana Gabaldon.
Mine's Kujic. No one can say that. And
well, I've seen Diana Gabaldon's books. Whenever I go to Barnes & Noble, I see Outlander, and I see her name big on the books. And I knew it was big.
But yeah, the first season is actually, it's based off of the book Outlander. Each season's based off of one book. Right now, there's 8 of them actually published. The 9th one is supposed to come out this year in November, which is called Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. But the first one, Outlander, one word. The newest one, Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone.
How many words does that go?
Too many. Like at least more than 3. Okay. But the first one came out in 1991. Like you said, it's been a gradual big hit. For this series came out in 2014. From what I've heard, though, the show stays pretty faithful to the books, which is a good thing, I think. We have seen all 5 seasons. There are 5 seasons out. Season 6 is set to come out next year, 2022. Mm-hmm. And it's season 7 has already been confirmed that they're going to make that. So the show's coming along, but we're going to keep it only to season 1 here. Spoiler-free talk on that, and then spoiler talk on that afterwards.
We'll probably do a season per episode of our podcast.
What are some things you like about the show? Spoiler-free, Colby.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, one thing I really like about the show is that it's got a lot of history in it. And there's a lot of historical accuracies as well as some inaccuracies. We'll help try to identify those in this episode today. But I love learning about the Scottish history, especially in the first season, first couple seasons. We learn more history moving forward in the show, but we're going to kind of stick to season 1 today.
Yeah.
So other things I like about it, just like with The Last Kingdom, and if any Outlander fans who haven't seen Last Kingdom, you're likely to enjoy that as well. But the camaraderie, the bro moments, there's a lot of them in Outlander as well. Yeah. A lot of camaraderie between the main character, James Fraser's group, his kind of entourage. It's actually kind of Dougal's entourage, but Jamie's involved. I love those. You fall in love with these characters again, just like in Last Kingdom, and it's fun, to get to know them. So I think those are the 2 big things that I love about this show. And then it's just a great story in general too.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's what hooked me. Same thing that hooked us, I think, with The Last Kingdom was learning about all this Old English and Viking history and mythology that we had never been exposed to before. It's the same thing with this Scottish history that I had really no knowledge of. And there's this really important battle and other historical events that they reference that I had no knowledge of. I've never heard of before. And it's always fun to see that. And and to learn something new while also being pretty interesting, dramatic,
and try to get a taste of how these people live too.
Yeah, that's the fun. I like the Scottish history. I like the Gaelic stuff that was going on.
I find the acting phenomenal too.
The acting's great.
The acting is very, very good. And it's kind of the same thing. They didn't really get a whole lot of, I guess when the show started, the actors weren't necessarily the biggest actors in the world. I think some of them definitely made their name through Outlander, right? Yeah. This was their big, big moment.
I think they were all pretty much unknown when this started. So I think the main actress, Katrina Balfe, I think she was a model or something before this. And she's actually Irish too. And she's English in this. Which again, I love all the Scottish. They're very heavy with the Scottish. Sam Heughan, Graham McTavish.
Yeah,
they're very heavy with that in the show. But another show they did, I actually watched. That's Men in Kilts, with them actually exploring Scotland. Their accents aren't very heavy at all, and actually Graham too, who's very heavy in the show, sounds more English in the Men in Kilts when he's just talking naturally. But anyway, I mean, the acting is great. The music too is pretty phenomenal. I mean, that was one of the things that always, when a show gets it right. I mean, we're just gonna keep talking about The Last Kingdom, but The Last Kingdom just made it unique, right?
I know.
With John Loon and Eivor.
I would say even Vikings had a great intro song.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting
Bear
that intro music.
Bear McCreary, he does the composing for it, and then Rhea Yaburo, she sings the vocals to the intro song. Sing me a song,
sing me a song, sing me a song, sing me a song.
But it's all good. The cinematography is great, makes it feel gritty and you're there. What are some of the things you didn't like about the show? Spoiler free, Colby.
So I think the very first episode has to set up a lot, and I think that was probably one of the slowest parts of the show, was just introducing everything. But I don't think there's any way around it. I think you have to do it. So I can see why it might take somebody a little bit to get into the show. It might be kind of like, what am I watching at first? And you have to let it give it time to set up. So if you're going to start watching the show and you feel like the first beginning of the episode is a little slow, it will pick up.
Yeah, same.
There's some instances, I don't want to do spoilers, I think they could have done better. I think they could have executed a couple big moments better. I don't think it's like a make or break, but I think they could have done a couple things better.
Okay.
And I can't really elaborate on that
just
right now.
As far as like scene execution, is that what you mean?
Yeah, big moments that happened that I think could have been just maybe done in a different way. Some things that I didn't think were quite satisfying enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the things I didn't like, I would say, first episode, I was pretty snoozy through that. And it was kind of at first, it was kind of confirming what I had thought about the show before I started watching it, is that a lot of women were recommending this. I thought it was strictly a romance show. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a boring romance show. No offense. But again, I've said I like this show. I love the show.
It's not typically Steve and my taste.
But this show is way more than that. It's about, like you said, it's the historical fiction. There's battles.
And now we love romance.
There's some fantasy elements. There's betrayal. There can be some times where it's a little romantic, cheesy. I would say season 1, though, I don't really have a problem with any of it. No. I think it's all pretty rational, everything that's done.
It's not till the later seasons, I feel like that.
Yeah, it's pretty natural, I would say. But one of the big things that might turn people off, and that we're going to talk about, don't worry, we have clips. They're not going to be, none of these clips are going to be shown. But there's a lot of sexual assault in this show.
It's a theme of the show.
It's
important to the show.
Apparently, though, that stuff is pretty true to the books. And I have to say, there's sometimes it was too much. And I'd say
it is a lot.
Spoiler free, by the end of the season, there's 2 episodes where it's just torture, and then the next episode is just all rape. And I was just so fatigued, and I was ready to quit the show, honestly. I probably would have quit then if not for my girlfriend still being interested in the show. And I was like, I'm trying to get her into more historical fiction shows. I'm going to push through. I'm going to go to the next season. If it was on my own though, I would have stopped after that because it was, and it's
tough to watch.
And we'll talk more about it when we get there. We don't want to give any spoilers or anything, but I mean that's a theme through the whole show. It's not just the first season; it's the whole show, and it's kind of weird.
But it's a theme of the show. I mean, physical abuse is a theme of the show, and it's a real thing people go through. I think she also kind of focuses on not only the abuse that happens, but how people deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of our non-spoiler thoughts on the show.
Yeah. If you had to give it a score, Colby, what score are you giving this first season?
Of season 1?
Season 1 of Outlander.
Season 1, I'm going to give it like a solid, I'll give 8 out of 10.
I wanted it to be a dream, but I knew it wasn't.
I would go 8.5.
We can insult you, but God help any other man that does.
Because I like I said, I really enjoyed the historical fiction stuff. But yeah, there was a lot of things. Like I said, I could have ended the show after this first season.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I didn't, but that's something you should think about when you're working on a show, Let's get into some So
if you haven't seen Outlander yet, stop the video or podcast here, go watch it, and then come back and watch the rest. Otherwise, let's dive right into these juicy details.
Yes. So season 1 of Outlander. Like we said, we're going to kind of go through. We're not going to break it down episode by episode.
Yeah,
like we have with The Last Kingdom. It's going to be more of just a character, general sort of plot.
Season 1 was like 16 episodes.
Yeah, it is long. And if we were to break down every episode, I know Colby and I can just yak forever. We would be here for probably 32 hours or so.
Where do we even start off? We start in 1945.
Yeah, it starts off, we're introduced to Claire Randall, the main character of the show here. She was a combat nurse in 1945. And then her and her husband, Frank Randall, who's played by Tobias Menzies. I've recognized him from a few other things like Game of Thrones.
Yes.
I was watching Rome recently. He's in that.
Good actor.
He's a good actor.
Very good actor. And
he's really good.
After this show, I have a ton of respect for him as an actor.
Yeah. And
the diversity.
Freaking hate him now.
I do and I don't.
Oh yeah. I understand he's not actually that person, but
no. But he also, I mean,
he does
we're
a
in
lot.
Spoiler territory. Everybody's seen the show.
We're spoiler free. Or spoilers.
He plays like a really good character too.
He plays.
Frank Randall is a really good guy.
Yeah. You can tell he has to suppress some of his anger and stuff, but he only acts on the good. So
yeah.
Frank, though, is Claire's husband in 1945. They've been apart for most of the war, which is World War II. And he was working for MI6 because they're both English. And now they're over, they're trying to bond and connect again. So they decide to go to Scotland. And he's going to be working as a historian at Oxford.
Yeah, and as they're driving there, he's dropping these details about the landscape, and he knows so much about the history of Scotland. And he's pointing out, this is where the British used to use this as a fort or a camping site, so they might be able to like ambush enemies at this place.
Yeah,
just dropping all these historical facts. And she seems to enjoy it when he does that. She seems to be like intrigued by the history as well. And we find a little bit about her background too, is that her uncle, I believe, was an archaeologist.
Yeah.
So that's where her interest in history has come from, learning from him. So it seems like these two are a pretty good match because, to somebody, I feel like Frank's ramblings about history might be kind of annoying, constant.
Yeah. Like my girlfriend.
and mine. But she loves it. She seems to really enjoy hearing about it, and she remembers it too, as we come to find out. But there seems though to be a bit of a disconnect between them coming back, reuniting after this war. They're off.
I think 5 years since they had been together. Can you imagine? That's been the duration of my relationship. I can't imagine being apart that long.
Yeah. And so
you didn't have Facebook or cell phones or anything back then. It was like a call on a payphone to stay in touch.
Yeah.
You know?
Still write letters too. Now,
letters.
So they're a little bit, they're not on the same page. They're trying. They both want to be on the same page at this point. There's even a point where he asks her, or she's telling a story about a Scotsman she treated.
Yeah.
And she seemed very fond of him during the story. He's wondering if she had another relation. And he even says to her, he's like, even if you did do something with somebody else during the war, he's like, that wouldn't matter to me. I love you so much. It doesn't make a difference to me.
Mm-hmm. That is one thing too about the show we were talking about. Sometimes it's cheesy, but like the men in this are just so perfect and evolved, like if my girlfriend, I'd be like, my rational brain would be like, yeah, I mean, I understand. Like we were apart 5 years. If you cheated, we're still married now. We're moving on, whatever. It was meaningless. But like the primitive ape-man part of my brain would be like, I'll kill you. I'll kill him.
I know. I don't know
him.
how I would. I don't know
Where
how
is he
I would
now?
handle it. I don't know how I would handle it. It's crazy.
What's his social media?
Yeah.
They're staying at Inverness in Scotland.
Inverness, yes.
They end up meeting with Reverend Wakefield. He's the historian who's like helping Frank go through this time period, the 18th century Scotland. Why Frank is so interested in it and why they're researching that specific time period is because his ancestor, Jonathan Wolverton Randall, was this captain in the Dragoons.
The Dragoons. I love when he says. I love that word.
It's a goofy name, isn't it?
It's a goofy, but it's an awesome name.
It is. It's like the giant feathery hats they wear in, like the Patriot. You're like, they look kind of goofy, but when they ride out, you're like, they're like evil demons.
Those are the Dragoons.
Those are the Dragoons, baby. And this is like what you said. This is the boring part of the show to me. I was just like, what are we doing here? Yeah. I was like, why are people telling me to watch this show? Like, it's nothing like The Last Kingdom. At this point, we already had to go fight the Danes,
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing?
Right.
And, but it's all important, all this setup, because it has to come in for Claire then, who's listening to all of this stuff. That's where
they go to the Castle Leoch, which is like a historic site, in 1945, an old Scottish castle. Yeah. It's a real castle. It's not called Castle Leoch. It's called Castle Doune.
Yeah.
I believe. So you can actually go there. It's kind of neat.
I know. There's all these places, like the Craignadoon stones. They also go there. They're not a real thing, Craignadoon, but there are real stones.
There's real henges. Yeah.
Yeah. The Callanish stones on the island, the Isle of Harris, is what they're based off of. And actually, Sam and Graham, they go to that too in their Men in Kilts thing on Stars, which is pretty cool.
That's really cool. And
he also takes her to Culloden, this giant empty field of marshy battlefield, and tells her this is where the Jacobite rebellion ended in 1746. And you're just like, what are we doing here? Frank, what are you doing with us right now? That's a field.
Yeah. And there's stones there for each Scottish clan, representing the clans that died in that battle, with the names on them. The names don't really mean anything to us at that point. But there's a stone with Mackenzie on it.
Mackenzie.
And anyway, so they go to all these cool places. And
Frank eats her out.
Yeah. Yeah. They have it,
that was another thing. I was like really surprised with the show, because I first watched this on Netflix. If you watch it on Stars, it'll give you a rating before the episode's coming on, which will kind of even give you a little spoiler about what it's specific to that episode, the rating.
Yeah.
But when I was watching it on Netflix, I was like, oh, here's this romance, maybe history drama thing we're going to be watching. And then all of a sudden he just starts going down on his wife in this castle. And I was like, oh yeah. Oh.
Yeah. And he's telling her all about the significance of this room in the castle and everything. And it's
before, not during.
Right. Not with his mouth full. Anyway, she's loving all these details. She's learning so much about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's one part when she goes back to their where they're staying. It's in the middle of town. And Frank, I don't remember where he went off to, but he was out at night and she had stayed there, and she was like doing her hair, and she was like in her nightgown in the window.
Yeah.
And Frank's coming back. He sees this guy wearing traditional Scottish kilt, and looks like And I've seen people wear it, like even today we see at like Scottish festivals, people wearing this kind of outfit.
I
right?
saw one go. I saw a guy yesterday walk by the gym with a kilt and stuff on. I was like,
Yeah.
where does he go?
Yeah, absolutely. He goes up to the guy because he knows he's staring at Claire dressing or doing,
Yeah,
half
doing her
naked
hair
in the
or
room,
something.
doing her hair in the room.
He's clothed, I think.
And he's like, "Yo, buddy, what are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
And he goes up to touch him, and this like thing turns like to the left and vanishes.
Yeah, and it's like storming.
And he's like looking around, and there's nothing around. And it's like, that was really creepy.
That's what I thought. We were going to get some creepy stuff here going on.
I thought that was cool.
It was cool.
Really cool. And actually, I still don't think we have an explanation for that one.
We still, I would say, yeah, without getting into spoilers for the later seasons yet, we still don't know what that was about. I'm pretty sure that was Jamie.
Yeah. Especially the second time watching it.
Now that I'm saying this, it might be something else. Eventually something happens and he gives a description and it looks like Jamie, like word for like just right there. I'm kind of thinking now, we know that Claire and Jamie end up getting together. I'm kind of wondering now, maybe that was even Jamie's son who's coming back to look at her or something. I don't know if it was Jamie himself. I don't know. That's just theory. I just can't believe right now.
I thought it looked like Jamie, especially the first time you watch it, you don't really know what Jamie looks like. So you're just like, okay. But when I watched it the second time, I really thought it looked like his hair.
Yeah. And just his build too. I was like, that's definitely Sam Heughan right there.
Yeah.
Even if it's supposed to be another character, you don't see their face.
Yeah.
So I'm I'm leaning towards it's him. At the very least, it was Sam.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the first moments I really felt like, ooh, okay, this show, that's kind of a hook for me right there.
Yeah.
I liked that moment. That moment like really reeled me in. And they end up going to this like they sneak to this like festival actually.
Yeah,
but what happened first is that she read her hand, right?
Yeah, well,
right.
Mrs. Graham, Reverend Wakefield's housekeeper, was reading Claire's hand and mentions like, oh, you have this line, so you have a husband, but you'll have another husband, and
yeah, because she's like, but there's another like marriage line or whatever, and she's like, that's weird. Usually they break and it goes like a different direction or something. She's like, you have two lines, they didn't break, they're running parallel.
Yeah. There's some other hand stuff. Like her husband was like, I can draw your hands. I was sketching them while I was gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Weird. It's like Quentin Tarantino's foot fetish.
Yeah. With the hands.
Okay.
It's only this season though, with the hands.
Yeah. There's like in the hands of the last episode too.
They're at this festival thing. I don't know. They're at the Stones though.
Well, they sneak to it because they heard about this tradition they have, right? And they go, and all these women, like with these like sort of torches, but they're like a flower torch or something. It looks cool.
Yeah, these cool candle.
They're wearing like robe type things, and these dresses are very spiritual, and they start just spinning in circles.
I really like this scene too. Just the music awesome and the
and it's a scene that they often like cut back to in the future seasons.
Yeah.
Too.
And Mrs. Graham is there too.
And Mrs. Graham is there. She is a believer in the goings on in Scotland, the superstitions, which by the way is one thing I would say is probably accurate about the show. And we'll learn more about the Scottish superstitions, but apparently the people of Scotland were extremely superstitious and did have a lot of beliefs that are similar to what they show in this season. I don't know if that's true today. I'm not saying the fact that somebody today believed that, but at least back in when the time period took place, when they go back with Jamie and stuff, I think a lot of superstition was true. But anyway, when they leave, they go up to the Stones, and Claire sees this flower she really liked. And she was going to take it, but then somebody ran back. And so Claire and Frank were like, let's just leave. Let's not get caught here. And so that's what made Claire want to go back to these Stones, because she saw this certain flower.
Yeah. And then she goes back. She hears this buzzing stuff going on, and she's just by herself now.
And she gets stung by like 100 bees. It was crazy.
And that's why the new book is called what it is. Bees, yes. Leave me alone.
Leave me alone, bees. And for the rest of the show, she's hallucinating because of the bee stings that like set off a chain reaction. And she thinks she went back in time. She thinks she has this whole storyline that never happened. No, I'm just kidding. No, but she hears the buzzing and the wind picks up. And she like has this compulsion to like touch this giant stone that's in the middle.
I mean, who wouldn't?
I know. You ever just seen something like, I want to touch that?
Any stone I see like that now, though, I'm gonna reenact like Claire and Jamie.
Yeah,
every time. That's just the way it's gonna be. I haven't come across one yet, but I'm going to.
Next thing you know, she like wakes up. She's like laying on the ground next to the stone, and she gets up and she's like, "Oh shit, I better go back to the car." And she notices like the grass is longer. It just looks a little different. She can't find the car.
All these British guys just start like shooting at her.
I know. She like gets caught in this chase with these Scottish guys are getting chased by these British guys. And she like isn't really running away so much. She like looks up at one of the British guys and he just like turns and shoots at her. I was like, holy crap.
That is one thing about this season that I'm just like, what is the fascination and the immediate response to a threat that the British see in Claire this whole season? It's just like when they first saw her, oh, woman in a nightgown, bam. Like I would have been confused.
Yeah, but he was also in adrenaline mode. Who knows what he saw? Maybe he just saw like, oh, that's not a red coat. You know, like maybe. Knows? I don't know. So she ends up running.
She thinks she's just like a Walmart or something. She's like, oh, this is like a mean crowd.
Like, yeah, she maybe thought it was like a reenactment or something, probably, but
she was like, that's a real bullet.
She's running away, and she goes and she finds this British guy who, by the way, you would think Claire would want to trust the British redcoats because those are her people. She's British, so she sees this redcoat shaving by the water, and I think her first reaction is, "Holy shit, you look like it's Frank," and that was my reaction too. I was like, well, Frank?
Yeah. And I thought that maybe what was going to happen is I was like, oh, maybe we were in the future seeing all these people that are going to be like reincarnated in the past or something. I still had no idea what was going on.
Maybe it transferred. Yeah. I still didn't really get it. And he introduces himself as Jonathan Randall. Very polite at first, you know. And you think like, okay, who's, this guy, British officer, maybe it's a good thing she found him. But she's so freaked out, and she starts to back away, and he pursues her. He like pins her against this rock.
Yeah, he's like, my name's not Frank.
Yeah,
it's John.
Yeah.
Why would you call me by my wrong name?
Yeah, but he's kind of like, who are you, and what are you doing here? And then he's gonna start like violating her.
Yeah, but then Murtaugh just comes down and knocks him out. And he should have killed him. There's so many times it's just like, all right, we've knocked him out. Let's just get like a knife, a sword, something,
Yeah. So my question is, what was the instinct of this Scottish guy to just save this woman? Just because he's a good dude,
Murtaugh is the best. And
when we're talking about
best bro moments, he's my best bro of the whole show.
He's the Finnan of the show.
He's the Finnan.
He's the Finnan of the show. For Last Kingdom fans, they get away, run away, and they come to this like shack. Mm-hmm. He brings her to this shack, and inside there's a bunch of Scottish guys that had just, this was their hiding spot from the redcoats. Mm-hmm. And this is where we meet Dougal Mackenzie. And we meet Rupert, we meet Angus, and we meet this guy sitting over by the fireplace. This strapping young lad.
A king of men.
Yes.
This man is
James Fraser.
James Malcolm Mackenzie Fraser.
Yes. Dougal is kind of like, who is this girl? Who's this woman?
Yeah. Everyone's so curious about her.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, are you a whore or whatever? Like what? Mm-hmm. And I'm not a whore. But you are dressed as one. Dougal's like, all right, we'll deal with this later. Like,
we got to keep going.
We got to fix this guy over. We got to fix Jamie over here before we keep moving.
Well, I think they weren't even going to fix him. And then,
well, they were going to fix him.
They were.
They were going to
do it wrong.
And so basically, Jamie's shoulder is dislocated, completely out of socket.
It looks like the whole scapula and everything is dislocated.
It looks bad. So they basically get like, all right, hold him down, and you guys push really hard. We're gonna get this thing back in there. And Claire is like, stop, because Claire knows an easy fix or the proper fix at least.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, you guys will break his arm if you do it like that. And they're like, what do you know? And this is kind of the first moment I think she starts earning some of their respect as a healer, because she's like, you have to do it like this. And they basically are like, all right, we'll let you do it. And she does it. And she's like, is it really going to hurt? But she does it quick. And his shoulder's like better. He still has to like wrap it up and put it in a sling for a while. But it worked. So they're all like, whoa. Interesting.
Interesting. And this is at the time is just, these were a bunch of random dudes, but this is where we first see basically the core bro squad of the Scots here.
Yes.
We got Murtaugh Fraser, who turns out to be the godfather of Jamie. Dougal Mackenzie, who we eventually find out he's the war chief to the Mackenzie clan. His brother Cullum is the ruler, but he's like the guy with the muscle.
Laird.
The Laird.
Yeah.
Not Lord, Laird.
The Laird.
And then we have Rupert. He's the big guy. He's like, I think he's a cousin to Jamie too, he says. And then Angus.
Right. They're cousins, but they're Mackenzies though.
Yeah, these are all Mackenzies. Like everyone's related here.
Murtaugh and Jamie are Frasers, but Jamie's also a Mackenzie because of his mother.
Yeah, and that's what his name too. And I heard all the names too at the beginning. I was like, "What is with all the names, Jamie?"
Yeah,
but he actually has two last names, the Mackenzie Fraser. That's because his mother was a Mackenzie, but his dad's last name was Fraser, so that's the name that he keeps.
That's the crew right there. I mean, we end up liking these guys. And one thing I want to mention too is I like how they go back and forth between speaking Gaelic and English, which is cool. And they don't give subtitles to what they're saying in Gaelic, which is really cool. You kind of have to use like, the context clues.
Yeah.
And they do that throughout season 1. And I kind of like that.
Yeah.
They do it like that.
That goes away for a couple of different reasons. But even when they're back in Scotland, we don't really hear that again. But we do find out though, at some point though, that it was actually outlawed by the British. And we'll talk about that some other time. Yeah, I really like that too. I remember the first time I was like, is my Netflix, is it not working right? What are they saying? Because it just kept happening. And there would be long stretches where just Gaelic is happening. And it's just like, what the?
And they'll be like laughing and looking at Claire talking in Gaelic. And like, it's kind of funny. Jamie and Claire ride on the same horse as they're trying to get away. They're trying to, I think, get back to the castle Leoch, and they're going a certain way. Yeah, you're like, ooh, nice. And
as soon as I saw him and her on the horse, and they had to like snuggle to keep warm, I was like, she is going to fuck him.
And you weren't wrong.
Nope.
So they're going, and on their journey here, Claire recognizes these rocks up on the ridge. And she remembers her husband Frank telling them that this was where they would ambush the Jacobites. So she like says that to Jamie, and Jamie is like, I better bring this up to Dougal. And sure enough, they get ambushed, but they are prepared for it. Well, relatively.
Yeah.
So they're able to escape it. And she tries to escape, but Jamie finds her. Now you really have to think about it from the Scottish perspective, because all we see is Claire's perspective. We know she's innocent, we know she's a good person, and she's, you know what I mean,
hashtag Claire Bear. From the Scottish perspective, you're like, this woman is British, she knows an awful lot about the British Army. She's now coming to like our headquarters here at the castle. This is kind of weird, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Double agent.
Her story's not like adding up. But by the way, Claire also doesn't use the name Randall. She
Her
uses her maiden name, Beecham, because she knows she doesn't want anything leading back to Frank, because she's still confused about where the hell are we. And she doesn't really put it together until the moment that Jamie and her are looking, and she's looking at where she knew the lights of Inverness were back in 1945.
Yeah.
She could like see the city lights, and she's like, where's the city? And Jamie's like, it's right there. Because to Jamie, it's like that little flame. It's like,
see the dot?
You're looking at it. So yeah, so then they go back to Castle Leoch, and that's pretty much the first episode. Now, I think we spent a lot of time on the first episode, but we kind of had to, because
a lot of setup.
You got to set this story up.
She gets into contact then with the leader of the clan Mackenzie there, Colum, as we mentioned earlier. The Laird. When in his office, she goes through some of his like records and stuff and finds out the rulers who were in at the time. So she's like, all right, 18th century. Eventually, she finds out she's in 1743. That sort of helps guide her out with what she is. But Colin, though, the leader, is Jamie's uncle. Him and Dougal, they're brothers. They're his uncle they're the brothers to his mother.
Right.
And he suffers from, I don't know how to say it, but some sort of syndrome where you just get genuvalgum like crazy.
Yeah.
Just get those bow legs.
Crazy. And I was just thinking we're going to see his legs snap at some point.
I remember you texted me and you said, don't spoil if it happens, but are his legs going to snap?
I thought it was going to happen. I really did.
I was so disappointed that it didn't after you sent me that. I was just like, oh, shit. I never even thought of that.
I know. We come to find out that actually Jamie's like not really in the castle. Jamie's kind of like in the horse barn. He's not really hanging around. He's kind of laying low.
Yeah.
In time, we come to find out it's because he's pretty much hiding, and Dougal and
Colum
are kind of giving him refuge because Jamie's a wanted man to the Redcoats.
Yeah. What happened was, this big part here obviously is that Jamie was flogged. First, his place in Lollybrook, that time it's actually right, their farm, him and his sister were attacked by some Redcoats. Randall wanted to rape his sister, as he does with everyone. Jamie tried to stand up for her, and he got taken away. And then from there, he was flogged twice, and that's why he has this crazy amount of scars on his back. And then apparently after he escaped, he was accused of murdering some guards. And when we eventually find out that actually Randall murdered these guards,
blamed it on Jamie.
Blamed on Jamie. And that's why he's a bounty on his head and he's wanted man.
Wanted man. That's just, important tidbit to know. And it's kind of the reason why Jamie's not where he really belongs at Lallybrook. He's not really supposed to be with the Mackenzie clan, even though he technically is a Mackenzie, and they do, he is their nephew.
Yeah.
But, they're pretty much doing him a favor by letting him hang around there. Claire basically tells the story that she needs to get. I think she needs to get to Inverness, right?
Yeah.
Because she needs to travel to France, I think, with her
family,
France. And Colum seems pretty educated. Seems like he's been through some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like quizzing her. He's very skeptical of her. And I actually I like Colum a lot at first. I don't really dislike him at any point, but I think he kind of does some like Alfred-y type stuff.
Yeah.
Some like things that make you mad, but like at the same time, he's from his perspective, it's the smart move.
Mm-hmm.
But at first he kind of agrees, in 5 days we have this cart that's going to Inverness. You can like hitch a ride. You just have to hang out here for, I don't know if it was a few days. And then you can get back. And Claire's like, good, I'm going to get back. I'm going to get to the Stones. I'm getting the heck out of 1743.
We've all been there.
Yep. So she's like, okay, I'm just going to hang out this week. They do stuff. They try getting her drunk, try to get more information out of her. They think she's like a spy. She even like sees, this part was crazy. She sees Dougal Mackenzie playing with a kid out in the courtyard and like being very affectionate with this kid. And she is like, oh, that's really sweet. So at dinner in front of everybody, she's like, I saw you playing with your son earlier. It was, oh God, it was so cute. And they're all like Dougal's like, shoot. Turns out that it is Dougal's son, but publicly it's Cullum's son, because Cullum can't have kids, I think, because of his disease.
Yeah, and that's one of the big parts that's the drama here at Castle Leoch. Here we mentioned Jamie hiding out. We've also have, though, the Dougal and Cullum. Even though they're brothers, they're kind of at odds with each other, because Cullum is the leader, but he isn't as physically capable as Dougal. He's a great leader, but then he can't sire his own son. He needs Dougal to go out and collect the rent, things like that. But at the same time, Dougal isn't as rational. He's not as patient, so he's not as great a leader as him. So they both have this resentment going on with each other.
Cullum's got a very good mind. He's very smart. He does a really good job for his own people. He looks after his own clan, and he's done a very good job of it. So basically, that's kind of, we've established this relationship, and we think Claire he's going to let her go, because Cullum seems pretty nice overall. Literally, right as Claire's leaving, he calls her in, and he's like, "Psych, you are staying."
So you're the healer now.
Yeah, and he's pretty much like, "I don't trust you. I think you're a spy."
Mm-hmm.
But also, Claire did some pretty amazing things too. While she was there, she gave him a massage at one point, I think.
Yeah,
made him feel better a little bit.
She's been patching pain. Jamie up. Jamie also had a gunshot wound. Up.
That's right.
So they see that she's useful with that.
Yeah.
So let's just keep her around then.
Yeah.
So then she'll stay. Some further drama then with the Mackenzies, because Jamie's hiding out there. They're asking all their guys to swear loyalty at one point to the clan, because it's a really tight family thing. So then, but once you swear loyalty then to the Mackenzies, you can't own your own stuff, all that stuff. You're the Mackenzie guy now. So that's why Jamie, he didn't want to swear loyalty to them, but at the same time, he couldn't insult them. So there's this whole unique way he kind of solved that. He just kind of gave a non-answer. He's like, I'll help you whenever you want, but I'm a free guy. Free agent here still.
Yes. There's also a scene too where Leary, this girl, had to be punished, and Claire's just observing this. And Claire had met her friend Galus.
Mm-hmm.
Galus Duncan was also a healer of sorts, and so she met her.
She gathers herbs.
She met and they bonded. And Claire's like, "Oh my God, I have a friend in 1743."
Mm-hmm.
And she helps translate what's going on here at these meetings, these clan meetings, and
usually her and Murtagh. It seems like
Murtagh too.
By the way, they say Murtagh instead of Murtagh. A lot of these names, when you look up how they're spelled, like Murtagh, I'm like, oh, Murtagh, but they say Murtagh. And then when you see Leary, you're like, oh, Leary, that's easy to say. You look at how they spell her name, not a clue.
Leary.
Not a clue.
Basically, Leary has to get punished for, what did she do?
She's been flirting. Her father accuses her of being basically a slut, which it could mean anything back then. It could be like, she looked at another boy and then kissed him,
And so basically, they present the evidence, and Cullum is like, all right, yep, you deserve to get whipped here, get flogged in front of everybody. And Jamie is like, he goes and proposes, I'll take the punishment for her.
So honorable.
So honorable. Oh my God, what a guy.
What a gentleman.
And so he gets punched by Rupert.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting scene because Dougal's in charge of saying when to stop.
They say it's at first blood.
Yes.
But it goes past that.
Yeah, so he hits him 2 or 3 times and he draws blood. And Rupert doesn't really like doing it because he likes Jamie.
Yeah.
But he's doing his job. And, Jamie understands. They all understand. This is just the way things go.
This is Scotland, man.
Yeah. But it goes over the line where he punches him in the nose, and I think he's got a bleed.
Yeah.
So he's drawn blood. But Dougal doesn't say to stop. And
Rupert looks at him even like, are we done? And Rupert's got heavy hands.
Yeah.
He got some heavy hands.
It's like, be a bro. Give him one of the a small jab or something, and let's act.
I know.
Oh!
He just keeps throwing heavy haymakers, or punch him in the chest. The chest absorb a lot of shock.
I think he punches him in the shoulder.
Well, the shoulder is kind of weaker. I'd be like right here with someone.
Oh, I know. I'm saying, but
that would suck.
He punched him frickin' right where his injury was.
I know. What a douche. I was like, come on, that's your cousin. Or like in the butt.
But that's the way things go. And
eventually they call it a stop.
They call it.
But you can see that there's this drama between Dougal and Jamie then.
Yeah, there's this weird. And Dougal, like, I keep wanting to like him because
That's what I mean.
He looks so badass. He's the leader. He seems like a cool character, but he pulls stuff like this all the time.
I first saw this actor in Creed, the movie Creed, and he was this badass fight manager in that movie. And then he was in this movie. He's got the I think it's a beret, I think you'd call it on, and he's riding on the horse with his kilt, and he just looks like a badass. He looks like a wolf. Yeah, like if a wolf turned into a person, it'd be Graham McTavish. Yes. That's what it would be. And
he looks like that in real life too. He has that beard and everything, right?
Yeah, but he's like a really nice, sweet guy in real life, though.
I
know, it ruins it.
Yeah, come on. Why you gotta be so nice?
No. But I'm the same way. Like, and that's Dougal's forever. That's the way Dougal is. At times you're like, he's awesome. What a vicious, awesome, badass dude. He'll stand up for his people. But then all the times you're like, oh, you're a dick. And right. You're jealous and spiteful. And like, what? I don't like you.
I know.
But it's on and again, off again with me.
It's on. Yeah. There's times you love him, times you hate him. So all that kind of goes down. And Claire's like really upset that she's not able to leave now.
One of the other things too we see is then Jamie, after taking the beating, though, he ends up hooking up with Leary.
That's right.
Claire sees it, and you're like, "Oh, is she a little jealous?" And Claire looked a little jealous, but then she was like, "I like Frank. I don't like him."
Yeah,
that's like what her voiceover said. But I was like, "You're definitely jealous." And who wouldn't be?
Yeah, but and yeah, right. Jamie, exactly.
Everyone wants Jamie in this show.
Everybody does.
Men.
Plural. That's so true.
Plural for men. Plural for women.
Yes.
Like Jamie.
Yes. Yeah, so Claire's like definitely developing feelings for this guy. She's kind of interacted with him a lot during healing him, and she just realized he's like a genuinely good dude. And then like it was so admirable when he stood up for Leary, took the punishment. Like she's like, wow, this is a rare find right here, this guy.
Yeah.
But she kind of like, go have your fun with Leary because, I'm taken and I'm not going to cheat on my husband, of course, even though I admit you're
super
strapping. Yeah.
Sam Heughan, I'd say in season 1 too. I don't know if he lost size or what, but he was like a big dude. At least maybe 2, because I was expecting, because it was a romance show, I was just sort of expecting the main guy to be sort of like skinny and stuff like that. I was like,
yeah,
he's a built
all
dude.
The Scottish guys are tough.
Yeah.
They also went on a trip together. Like they brought Claire along for this. They go collect taxes and things like that. And
yeah, they go
with Dougal, and
we meet Ned Gowan there.
He meets Ned Gowan because she's like reciting poetry or something, and Ned Gowan knows it. He's like, he's a
lawyer.
Ned Gowan is
he's part of the crew.
He's studied at Edinburgh. He's an awesome character, and he's another bro. He's somebody who's been a bro through and through. I think his entire storyline.
Yeah,
but she basically like immediately cures his asthma, which is pretty awesome.
I was just like, I don't know if it worked that well. I mean, if it did, people with asthma now, right? They'd be smoking that all the time.
Yeah. So anyway, it was perfect.
Also, Willie's there too. This young kid. We met him. He's a new guy.
Yep, he's on his like first trip.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. He's trying to fit into. He kind of becomes one of the bros. Yep. So they're collecting, and on this trip, Claire actually gets the opportunity to pass around a blanket filled with piss, and
and sing about it.
And sing. She's like, she goes with all the women, and again, it's a time where women had their place in this time. Claire, and it's weird that Claire's so educated. Like everybody's thrown off. Like,
and this was a real thing. I think they showed again. I think in Men in Kilts that women actually would do this.
So they have this. I don't know what they're doing to it.
I think they're getting the pee in it so they can dye it.
Oh, okay.
Like a certain color. I think it's blue, maybe.
Cool.
You need pee for blue back then.
Of course.
And I love blue, so I'd be like,
I wouldn't love blue anymore.
It's so funny too.
Blue colored cloth was.
It's their pee. It's their pee too. Like they have like Claire like starts to squat over a barrel like we need some more, and she's like, okay.
There's no sinks with antibacterial soaps in this time. Like, what are they doing after this? They're just going and eating food. Like, God. They're going and touching their kids' faces. Like, oh, I love you. Like,
you gotta be so freaking tough just to survive. Not even to be like a warrior, just to be a regular person.
Yeah.
You had to be tough. Yeah. I would rather do it with like dog's pee than I would with humans' pee. Just to know, like, if it was like your pee, you know, I'd be like, no way. Love Colby, but no way.
No way. So they have a great time. They look like they love this. And then they even like go get Claire to do it, to pee in the bucket as she's about to start. I think it's Agnes who is in charge of watching her comes in.
Yeah, Angus.
And he's pissed. And so they're like yelling at her and
he's pissed.
Claire's pissed too.
Oh.
Anyway, they're upset because like she heard that Dougal's taking their goat or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they're only one they can use for milk. It's the only one they can use
for the baby.
So she's like yelling at him, you should give it back. And he's like, this is what is owed. And then they hear this voice, and there's a British guy who's like, are you okay, madam? Are you Angus? And Dougal are like, who the hell do you think you are, bro? And he's not wearing a red coat. He looks like he's just like he lives in this town, but
he looks like a blacksmith.
Yeah, he looks like a blacksmith. I ask you again, madam, are you in any danger or whatever? And she decides to say, no, I'm not. Dougal threatens him. It's pretty awesome. They go back.
It's kind of nice to see that there's some stand-up dudes in the show too, because most of the dudes you run into in the show are just the worst people. So then when you see a stand-up guy like this, you're just like, yeah, that's a great guy.
Yeah, this British guy is absolutely a stand-up dude. So anyway, he goes away, and you see actually there's a red coat, and you're like, oh crap, he's a red coat. So that's not good because we really don't want Claire to be found by
Randall.
Black Jack Randall. So
Jack
whatever.
Black.
Yeah. So there comes a time when Jamie and Claire Dougal and Claire are alone.
Yeah.
And he wants to question her. Like she said, I'm going to go off and do something. And he goes and he starts questioning her. Like, who are you really? You better start telling me.
And what leads to it too is this whole time they're doing this tax collecting. They're keeping two separate purses for the money they're bringing in. And they eventually find out that the one purse is going to Dougal, and she thinks he's picking the pocket basically of Cullum, but it's really that he's getting funds for this Jacobite rebellion. We find out that that's what she learned about was the Jacobites at the Battle of Culloden, and where they all died on that field, where pretty much all of them, and they're using Jamie's back as like the motivation to donate. Yeah, they're basically exploiting Jamie's scars. Mm-hmm. And that really upsets Jamie. Jamie doesn't like doing that. And it upsets Claire too. And they rip his shirt every single time. And then they sew it back up. It's like, at what point do we just say, let's take it off? Right? I mean, they eventually do that, but I mean... they're not cool with that. And it's always in Gaelic when they do these meetings too. And you can just see Graham McTavish is like so into it. And all the Scottish people around are looking like, oh yeah, yes. So it's cool. And then they give it all their money. There's like all their money for Jamie's back. While Graham McTavish is like calling Claire out by herself, Dougal is, here comes the same guy. He was the red coat. What is his name? Captain? I don't know his name. Yeah, I forget his name. But anyway, he's an officer. And he's
he's
British
like, again,
redcoats.
madam. Yeah, he's an officer. And he's like, again, madam, I ask you again, are you okay? And just a good dude, like coming back to make sure she was okay. He ends up taking both. He's like, I'm going to take you to my boss, basically. And Dougal's like, well, wherever she goes, I go. So
I had kind of mixed feelings at this point because they were kind of being dicks to her on the trip, the whole tax collecting thing. They were kind of ignoring her and stuff. And then like she had some moral opinions about things that differed from theirs, like these raiders that were basically pillaging other Scotsmen, and they were fine with that. But then there's another point where they're staying overnight at this other town, and all these Scotsmen are insulting her in Gaelic, and then all the boys I love that was a moment. I love this moment because you don't even know what they're saying. You can't understand what they're saying, but you can tell by like the way they're looking at her and like the gestures they're making with their face. And like how the guys at her table, like Angus and Rupert and Murtaugh, are all looking. They're just like we want to just beat the shit out of those guys for talking about Our Lady, you know?
Yeah, but like we don't really find that out for real yet until after the fight.
Yeah,
when she's like yelling at them, like, "Why are you guys so pig-headed and like you've always getting in these fights and this and that?" And I can't remember which one says, he's like, "Because we're defending your honor." You know, like they're talking smack about you, girl. You can't have that. And I think there's a line, I think like maybe Rupert says it, like, we can talk about you like that, but not them.
Yeah.
You know,
and
it's like, that's such a brother thing to say.
Yeah.
That's like when you have a sister, that's like what the brother would say. Like, I can pick on you, you know, but nobody else.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
It's cool.
And so it was kind of nice because they had ups and downs. They were bonding. I mean, she makes another great joke too about Rupert. I forget what it is, but then like
think about his penis or something.
Yeah, something about his penis, and then like they all laugh, and then the horse laughs too. Like if you watch that scene where she makes a joke, the horse is like, ha ha ha.
And Rupert, at first you weren't sure like if they were mad that she said it, but then they start laughing, and Rupert's like, I've never heard a woman tell a joke before. Yeah, so you could tell they're bonding, and all of a sudden, but then you're mixed here because Dougal's kind of been he
still doesn't trust her
about him, and this British guy is being really nice to her,
and he's like, let's take you back, like let's get you to wherever you need to go.
It's like, holy crap. And so they go up to they meet with the captain, and Dougal's like standing like her bodyguard behind her. And they are just insulting him like crazy, these British officers. And he's giving it back. He's not. And they basically pretty much tell him to get out. And he's like, and he tells Claire, like, in like a protective way, he's like, I will be right downstairs. So then they're having this nice talk with Claire. And Claire tells him where she needs to go, gives her story. And they pretty much say, okay, like we'll help you get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody comes in.
Randall.
Who else? Randall.
Jack
and
Black.
And they both have this like, oh shit look on their face. They insult him a little bit too. Like,
yeah, because he's like dirty, and
and
it was kind of, I kind of liked him in this moment because it's like he's clearly like doing soldier work, and they're just in here dining,
Yeah.
And like, oh, you're being destiny here. You're gonna ruin the wine, and he like steps right outside the door and just like,
yeah,
and just like pats it off, and comes back in.
Yeah, pretty awesome. I have so much respect for this actor.
Yeah.
By the way, we never mentioned this. We'll get to the scene in a second. But meanwhile, all this is going on. They keep flashing back to Frank in his own time.
Mm-hmm.
Looking for Claire, and everybody's like, dude, she left you for another man. Like, there's no evidence of a body. She ain't, so she's probably not dead.
You saw this
she
guy.
Probably left you yeah, the car is there. She probably just left with another man.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank like refuses to believe that, even though he had some doubts, he's in such denial, and he hangs out in Scotland for forever looking, and the police are giving up, and he's getting really frustrated. He even like, somebody takes advantage of his grief and like says, we know where she is or something, or we know the guy that she is with. And he like believes them, goes to an alley, and they mug him. Even
well,
though
they try to mug him.
He beats the crap out of him because he's a soldier too.
And he lets the woman leave, and she's like, "Why are you doing this? You're mean."
I know. You're the one.
You were using the man's grief to rob him in an alley and beat him, and then all of a sudden he beats up your guys, and then like I would have just broke her neck, you know. Oh my God.
And there's times when he's frustrated and he's like drinking and he's like, okay, so we're starting to see some of like the sort of Blackjack Randall side of Frank come out here.
Yeah.
But it's always like fleeting. He always gets frustrated, but he always comes back to being a good guy.
He can put a lid back on it.
He puts a lid back on. He like comes to terms with like, okay, I overreacted because I'm emotional, which who wouldn't be in this situation? Holy crap. Your wife just gone, just vanished, and no body, like nothing. Like even the Mrs. Graham tries to tell like what might have happened. Like maybe she went to the Stones and like things happened. And he's just like, I simply don't share your beliefs.
I know.
Like, I just don't believe you. And I mean, that's a pretty crazy thing to say to somebody whose like wife has disappeared.
That was a good scene. That was a good scene.
It was a good scene. And he wasn't super rude about it. He was just like, I just don't believe that. So I'm still thinking Frank is a good dude. Frank's a good dude. So now we're back here with Blackjack Randall.
Just walks in.
The scene evolves. Right. So the scene ended up evolving where it's just Claire and him in the room.
And this is never good.
No. Well, we're not sure. We've only had the one encounter with him so far, and then we've seen the scenes of him flogging Jamie, I think. He's like, I think we need to get off to a new start. And he's actually kind of likable here. He starts drawing her, and
then he like tries to play like this pity card, like, I'm sorry, like I tried to rape you, like I was just worked up and I'm a bad man. And then he starts telling, and this was again, like what you're saying, all props to the actor here, because he goes through this scene where he's just like trying to like make it sound like he's this pitiful man, and he's talking about, and this is where they show the scene with him flogging Jamie, and then he starts like, oh, the flogging, but then he like starts to like describe it as an art, and how the arm gets tired after so long, just like. And it's a brutal scene too. I mean, this is like Passion of the Christ level, just torture, whipping.
But amazing, like, because he's got all the power. Jamie's chained up, and he's like just laying limp. But he won't give in. He won't give him what Blackjack Randall wants. He won't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, it's amazing because Jamie's like beating him. Because you can see how fatigued Blackjack Randall's getting. He's like falling over.
He's losing his arm strength. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's just blood is just drenched the floor. Like Jamie's feet can't even stand on it because it's so slick. And he's got like skin that's like just flapped off his back. And
I know.
And, we're both physical therapists here. And we know some about wound care and burn care. And with this amount of the dermis gone, you would need a skin graft for that to
Holy
heal.
Crap.
There was nothing there. It's just raw meat back there now.
It was just crazy. So,
it's a brutal scene.
It was an insane scene, and they show a lot of it. They show, like, the skin flaps. And
yeah.
Oh, that's another hard scene to watch.
The violence it's too much. And that's someone who likes historical, medieval violence and stuff. But it's like the torture and that sort of stuff.
That's where like Jamie's dad died watching that too.
Yeah.
Jamie's dad went and like his heart stopped from seeing this.
Yeah.
A lot of things come from that moment with the flogging.
And we also find out later on, he's not just a sick, evil person. Well, he is a sick, evil person, Randall. But for him, it's about like getting in the other person's head and beating them and like making them fear, because we saw no, actually we don't see it yet, but we see later on when he tries to rape Jamie's sister, what makes him stop is he doesn't get in her head. She just laughs at him the whole time.
Yeah.
And he
leaves. Yeah.
So this is about beating Jamie and breaking him is his big thing, is breaking him.
He couldn't get it up with her too. And that's why she started laughing at him.
Couldn't get up.
And he left.
So with Jamie then, and we find out eventually too, with the whole flogging scene at Fort William with Jamie, that it was about, he did say, well, hey, if I can have my way sexually with you, we don't have to have a flogging. And Jamie was like, I'll take that flogging. I'll take that flogging then.
Take the flogging.
I'll take another one. But
so
it was
we find
about
out
breaking him, is what it's about, you know? And you can just get that from this story. It's just so sick.
Yeah, so we find out that he is Blackjack Randall. Not only wants to break him, but he like looks at Jamie. He wants him. He's attracted to him. He like
admires him.
He's in love with his body. But so we find out he goes both ways, Jack Randall. I think he prefers men, but he's obviously done bad things to both. I don't think he might be. I don't think it matters with him.
I think it's about just doing terrible things to someone. I don't think he even cares about like sexual preference wise. I think it's just like to him that's just an evil act you can do to someone.
But I do think he has feelings for Jamie.
I think he does, I think it's like the feelings of this is a guy who wouldn't break, and then he's like this giant scarred piece of art that is mine.
Yes, yeah.
It's all
a
like
very demented
on
way.
Himself.
It's a very demented way.
It's like a narcissistic.
Agreed
with him.
It is a very narcissistic love, and he is a horrible freaking person. But in this scene at the table, he's kind of convincing Claire otherwise, and he says something that even makes Claire like relieved. She's like crying, almost like a catharsis cry, because she's like, oh, my husband's ancestor is this piece of shit. And he says something that like makes her believe that he can change and that he's going to be a good person. And then what does he do after that?
He starts just beating her.
Just gut punches her. He has her take his hand. He's like, give me your hand. And just boom in the gut. And that was the moment I was like, what? He even had me fooled, I think.
I was kind of fooled. I wasn't entirely fooled.
He even has like his right-hand man come in, British private come in, and he's like, kick her.
I mean, he asked to, have you ever kicked a woman before?
Yeah, it's so liberating. He's like, and the kid's like, I don't want to do this. Like, no, this is like not cool.
But he does, like a little piece of shit.
He does it. Yeah, he's like forced to by Blackjack Randall.
Could have said no.
I know. He could have
said no. Oh my God.
So he does it, and they're just kicking her in the stomach over and over again. And who comes to the rescue?
Dougal.
Dougal comes in like a big bro and just like, you know, he didn't come soon enough, but he comes in and takes her out of that bad situation.
Again, another moment I love Dougal.
Yeah.
And then, so that whole leads then to Randall having now an obsession with Claire Bear.
Yep.
One of his sick, evil things, because he wants to get his hands on her. He wants to break her. And then he's legally asking then to have rights to her. Dougal's then like, I've got a way we can legally get rid of this then, is to make you a Scots woman. Oh, and he takes her down to this lake too, or a river. Like if you drink from the river, you're telling the truth.
Yes. Yeah. So another great superstition from,
Yeah. And she tells him the same story she has been pretty much. And he's like, all right, well, now it's true.
Yeah, because you would have died. Like
you would have died otherwise. Science.
Science. Okay, perfect. We should have started with this.
So he's like, all right, I'll have you marry Jamie. So you can. And she's like, oh, thank God, Jamie and not Angus.
I know.
Or Rupert.
I know.
How funny would that have been if he'd be like,
well, she's
Rupert.
But she still doesn't really want to do it because she doesn't want to be disloyal to Frank.
Yeah, she still loves Frank, and she wears his ring.
So Jamie comes and talks to her before they decide officially to do it. He's really sweet again. Like, how can you not freaking like him? And he's like really happy. He wants to marry her. Like, it would be great.
Because back then, for them, it's just a woman who can still have children, who isn't married yet or whatever. That's fine with me. Let me get my life started then, so I can do this stuff.
And he's also kind of like, look, I also get it. Like, you have your other husband, you know, and you have feelings for him. So like, let's at least just do it for the legal, you know, side of it. And
let's just do it for the law.
So she agrees, like, reluctantly to do it.
It's funny,
she still
too,
isn't happy about it.
At this moment, she's like, does it matter that I'm not a virgin? And he's like,
yeah,
but I am.
Yeah, he's like, does it matter that I am? And she's like, what? I think everybody watching it is like, what?
I know.
What?
And That was pretty
he's like, as long as it doesn't bother you that I am, or something.
The whole next episode, we finally get away from just beating and torturing people, and it's just it's just a whole wedding episode. And I really like this episode. This is probably one of my favorite episods from the whole season, honestly. Yeah. Even though it's like the lovey-dovey one. They cut out
We've changed.
Yeah, they keep after like just someone getting flogged for like 15 minutes, I am ready to see something else.
Yes.
And that's kind of the theme later on here is you're just ready for something else. And they do this like whole back and forth. They show like everything he did to prepare for the day and how thoughtful it was. And the two of them are just in the room after the wedding. They pretty much like they briefly show the wedding at the beginning, and then they're in the room, and you're just like, we don't get to see the wedding, but then you do. It's like flashbacks, and I really liked how it was set up. And then you get to see all these thoughtful things he did. He got this key made into a ring from, I think it's from Lollybrook, right?
Yeah, and he is like ecstatic during the wedding. He's like so happy, like, and proud, and she's like
crying. I have to marry a handsome man.
But she feels really guilty about it too.
Yeah.
Like, she still loves Frank, and Frank is her number one, you know?
And I think what I also like about this is they end up eventually having sex and everything. But it's so natural too, how it happens. Yeah, it's like they just talk forever first. And then
he could have forced her if he wanted.
Yeah.
And nobody would have at the time, nobody could say anything, and he's way big, you know. But he's such a good dude that he's like, wait, we don't have to do this right now. Like, let's talk. Let's just talk, you know. And everybody outside
for like a second.
I know when they do it, and he's like freaking out. He's like, he didn't like it. You didn't like it. And she's like, and this is where she's a really good scene from Katrina Balfe, is that she looks so guilty, and it looks like she doesn't like it, but she just feels bad because she really liked it. And she feels really guilty about Frank at that point. So it was a great scene. And then they proceed to do it like 10 more times.
And this is where you get to see some more of like what I think is the author's sort of sexual fantasy side, where like she's like biting him at one point and stuff too. And you're like, all right, this author clearly, like, she always bringing up rape. She's always like having some sort of violence or threat of violence during sex. Like, this woman clearly has a weird fantasy thing going on. Not to judge other people's fantasy, you know what I mean? Not to judge your sexual preferences, but clearly there's a theme here.
There's so many times in the show I was like, how does she come up with this just horrible stuff? Not that this scene was horrible, but some of the other things. Horrible. Like, it's crazy. But you know what? We can't really judge because this stuff happens in real life. A lot of this stuff to people, and people go through trauma, and people, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm just saying though, there's these traumas. They're so frequent, and then there's a few scenes this season. Like there was this scene where she's like biting him and stuff during the sex. Not that that's super weird, but then later on, she has like a knife to his throat at one point when she's on him, and you're just like, oh my god.
They do it, and at one point Jamie's goes down, and they, you know, everybody knows they've consecrated the marriage, and Dougal's looking like a sad puppy dog at the table.
And he's like, "You gonna thank me?"
Yeah, he's gonna. Yeah, you want to thank me? And he's like jealous. And later on, Claire goes down, and Dougal goes, and he's like, "I'm so sorry you had to marry him and do this. Like, if you ever want a real man or something." And it's like, holy crap, he's making a move on her.
I know. It's like, why are you doing this?
Yeah. He's like, it must be such a burden for you. And she just goes right back, and it was a good episode. And they bond. I mean, Claire is really falling in love for real.
Yeah.
And even though she's tried not to, she's really tried not to because of Frank. But
she keeps both rings on.
Yep.
Some of then the other. So then it kind of picks up then with his mission then to clear his name so that he can get back to his farm. He first tries to go to the Duke of Sandringham, who Simon Callow. You hate this character, but at the same time you love him because he's so good at what he is.
So good. He's in Phantom of the Opera.
Oh yeah.
I think this guy's had a history of doing operas and maybe Broadway, but
the character's very flamboyant.
Very flamboyant and dramatic and very deceitful and political. And he'll like tell his scribe to stop writing this, you know. And as soon as he's like blackmailed, he's like, well, on the other hand, I could see to it that Blackjack Randall could be, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's who he is then when they're going to him is one, he's this powerful connection in the British government. He's also, though, a sympathizer with the Jacobite rebellion, but he also supports Blackjack Randall because Jack Black does all these terrible crimes against warfare and humanity, humanity. And then for whatever reason, this guy supports him. No idea why the Jacobites and Jack. Maybe it's because he has Jack do some terrible things for him. They give a little quid pro quo to each other. Claire Bear goes to him and basically, he's like, hey, I know about your connection. Help out my husband. And then when Jamie and Murtaugh get there, he asks for the help and he's like, I will help you now, but you're going to have to help me with the McDonald's, because McDonald's is trying to set up this fast food restaurant.
Right. And we can't have that.
Yeah. So there's this whole thing, and then they have a pretty sweet fight after there's supposed to be this duel. It's not really a duel though. It's like they just
apparently this happened a lot though.
Yeah.
It was like a sign of respect, and you're putting yourself in harm's way, but they have a gentleman's agreement to actually not shoot each other. But you're taking the risk that the other guy doesn't.
Yeah, he doesn't turn on you. Bam.
Yeah. So they do that, the gentleman's agreement, and then there's a fight because the McDonald's insult Jamie.
Mm-hmm. And Jamie just starts throwing some spice right back at him, you know?
Yeah.
He's like, well, McDonald's isn't even as good as Wendy's. And
they're like, we're going to take over the world.
They get wounded. And then Duke of Sandringham says he's going to get that letter out there. But then we eventually find out that doesn't happen. So we hate this guy. But he gets wounded, goes back. Eventually, though, because the Duke of Sandringham thing doesn't work out, they end up going then to find this guy who says he saw what really happened when Jamie got out, and that Jamie didn't kill those guards, and that it was Randall. So they're going on a quest to go there. And this is after they're married. They are out in the grass, fooling around. And and then another, they ruin this scene here with these two British officers come and I don't know if, again, this is full on sexual assault. I don't know if it crossed the line into rape. I mean, it's rape.
It was rape. It was sexual assault. We don't know if the guy inserted.
Yeah.
That's what we don't know because of the way it was filmed.
I hope not.
I hope not too.
Just because I love Claire Bear and I didn't want that guy to get anything. Jamie instantly she kills a guy.
So so they had shown her earlier. There was a scene where they were another cool camaraderie scene where they're kind of teaching Claire defense and where should you hide your weapons and
where to stab
and all this great stuff.
Great scene with Angus, I thought.
Yeah, great scene with Angus. Because Angus is rough around the edges.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's always kind of mean to her, but
they start to become her boys.
Day,
you know,
they're her boys. You know, they were following her around because they didn't trust her and stuff.
Yeah,
they end up looking after her. So she gets the guy that's on top of her,
mm-hmm.
and Jamie does the smoothest throat cut.
I know. And I was just thinking, why did he not do that as soon as they pulled him off? Because I feel like you could have done something. At the very least, I would have tried my damnedest in that situation.
God.
You know.
So it was so smooth. It rivals. It may have been better than Uhtred's season 3 throat slice in the battle at the Enfliat.
Oh yeah,
it would rival. It's close, but it rivals that.
That was.
The thing is, the difference is Jamie got out of a hold and did it, and Uhtred just came up to some guy that was like awestruck and did it.
Yeah.
But like
that slice was so clean. It polished my shoes and washed my car.
That's in textbook slice. Throat cutting 101. That's like the perfect. Now you don't have to be perfect, but this is what we strive for.
This is what we strive for, people.
It's
She's
like
pretty worked up, as you would
she's shaken
be.
up. Oh my God, yeah.
And they're like, well, we still got to get to this meeting. They go to the meeting where they're on their way there because Jamie does not want Claire put in harm's way anymore. He tells her to hang back with Willie, and he's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, first of all, first rule, never leave wifey alone. Never leave wifey alone.
Right.
But she's just so angry right now and frustrated. Like, she doesn't know how to direct this stuff right now.
Right.
And she's just being really mean with Jamie. Not because she's mad at him for doing something. It's just she's mad. Willie, for whatever reason, he's like, I have to go to the bathroom. And he goes down a ways. She's like, well, go downwind. And then later on, though, so I thought he was going to go take a number 2. Later on, though, he says, I went to go take a leak, take a number 1 to Jamie when she disappeared. And I was just like, why did you have to go downwind to take a leak? You know?
Right. So this is inconsistent.
So you're either lying about
good catch,
going number 2,
good catch,
or you should just peed there. Either way, it doesn't make any
we're
sense.
Outraged by this. Writers of
Downwind
Outlander
would have influenced it.
Like, what's going on here?
So big plot hole. I'm gonna change my rating to probably like a 3.
Yeah. What the heck? Oh man. So he takes a piss. We think.
I hope a whole Netflix documentary comes out on this. What was Willie doing?
Well, could it have been a little bit of both?
Maybe he did the Holy Trinity. All 3 ends.
Yeah, I just peed. You just didn't want to.
That's what he has to call it.
Oh my God.
Because everyone's like, oh, don't want to know. Just tell me you peed.
We want this deleted scene. Yes.
Claire ends up seeing that she is right across from Craig Nadoon, the Stones. And she's like, I'm going to go there and get back out of this crazy time where people
She's
can
like,
just
fuck
get
y'all.
raped. Fuck y'all, I'm out.
No, but she's been wanting this opportunity for forever. And she finally gets it. And we just see they go to touch the stone and she's going to reach and the screen just goes black. Right?
Yep.
Next thing we see, we expect her to like wake up back in 1945.
Yeah.
And she is just getting pulled away from the stones by these British soldiers.
And this is what I mean right here. So they take her to Fort William here to old Jack Black here. Not Black Jack. Jack Black.
Jack Black. He's like, whoa!
Totally awesome, Claire.
Claire Bear! How we doing?
Claire Bear!
Are you ready to rock and roll?
Woo-hoo! A ding-a-ling, ding, 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 ding. But
the pick of destiny will get you back.
We'll get you back in outer space to your own time in your very own place. But this is what I'm talking about. Okay. What is the high priority these British officers have on capturing this one woman? You know what I mean? Like they see her, like they're hiding from around these stones here or something.
Like don't you touch that stone!
Hey!
It was no. They were just there. They were like the people at museums that are like, don't touch the stuff, don't touch the painting, and there's always somebody that's just gotta like, no. That was their job.
Yeah, they weren't there for her specifically.
No.
They were there. They're like, they bring her all the way to Jack Black, and they're like, we found this woman trying to touch a stone, sir. They take her to Fort William, where Jamie was flogged, where old Black Jack Randall sets up shop.
Mm-hmm.
She knows she's gonna meet him there, so she's like, I'm gonna think of what to say. I think this maybe is where she works out. He works for Duke of Sandringham. I don't know.
So she basically uses that against him.
Yeah, she goes there. She tries to say, hey, we both work for the Duke. Leave me alone. And you think she's got Randall on the ropes here. Like, she's, like, fixing his tie thing. And
yeah, he looks like, oh, shit. Like, how the hell did you know that? How did you know that? Because I think that was secretive. And then he is like...
You got orders from the wife, right?
You got orders from the wife, right? That's who you got orders from. And she's like...
Duke's wife.
Well, duh. Like, who else? Like, yeah, I know how it works.
As soon as he said that, I knew that was a trick. I was just like, don't say that, Claire. Don't say yes.
He's so like smooth with this. He's like, oh, it's really funny because like the Duke's never been married.
Yep.
And she's like, oh, no.
He just gets out a rope from his keyboard drawer.
Yeah. He's got his desktop computer desk. Yeah.
And in there, not only does he keep his mouse and his keyboard in the same thing, that's just kind of weird, but he had this rope too. And she's just like, as soon as she sees this, I'm thinking the same thing. I was like, no.
Oh my God.
And he tells the guy outside, he's like, don't come in no matter what you hear. And this is a guy who was like kicking women too. So he's like, this is a good guy to have.
Right.
And again, like, this was even a little too much for me. He like bends her over a table, like even just like him like kicking her legs out to the sides was like, oh God. And then he like gets her knife that she has on her ankle and puts it up to her nipple.
And like cut her a little bit too.
God, like what a freaking weird thing. But then, bam, Jamie comes right in.
Through the freaking window.
Batman.
Batman. Yes. 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 By the way, I think it's a great time to mention Jamie, in my opinion, even in the events of season 1, earns a spot on our dream team.
Oh yeah.
With the likes of Uhtred, with the likes of Ragnar Lothbrok, with the likes of
Geralt of Rivia.
Even Finnan and Citric are on the dream team.
King Leonidas.
Rivia, Aragorn, Gandalf, everybody.
Samwise Gamgee.
Samwise Gamgee.
He's in charge.
He's in charge. So anyway, I just wanted to say that he deserves to be...
I think this moment sealed it, huh? Is what you're trying to say.
This was like one of the most badass moments. And he's like, I'll appreciate if you took your hands off my wife.
Get your hands off my wife.
And he's just got this gun pointed like this in the door. It's so Batman.
Yeah. You're just like, thank God we don't have to see Claire get raped by Randall.
I know.
Thank God. That Randall guy will never be able to hurt anyone ever again. Thank God.
And Randall's like, whoa, that's freaking cool.
I know.
The look on his face is kind of like, whoa, nice. He comes in.
And they cut back and they show Jamie's whole build up to this, and he had to get his men ready, and they infiltrated the castle then. And it was pretty sweet. Pretty sweet fort infiltration here.
Reminded me of when the boys in Last Kingdom break into Bebbanburg a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
same.
It's like a SEAL Team 6 kind of move here.
Yes, this was SEAL Team 6 all day.
And they sneak in. The boys all have their roles. They know what they got to do.
I think it's Angus, Murtaugh, Willie, and Jamie.
And they had to talk him into it. Like the guys were like, "We are not gonna break into Fort William. Are you out of your mind?" Mm-hmm. And Jamie,
I kind of like how they do that in this show too, because pretty much any other action battle show you watch, it's just like, well, yeah, we have to go do this battle thing. But in reality, it's like we could die.
Actually, I take it back. I don't think that was yet. I think that's when they break in for Jamie's thing.
Well, I think he still had to kind of talk him up for this.
Oh, okay.
I think and they get pissed that they had to do it.
Yeah, but they do it, and they do it well.
Mm-hmm. And Jamie rappels down to the window. You get to see it all.
It breaks in, and it's so freaking cool. They set up an explosion on the way out, and they're trying to escape.
Yeah. The annoying thing too was Jamie pulled the gun, and it turns out the gun was empty. But then Randall's like, "Put the gun down," and he's like, "Okay." And I was like, "No, you shoot the guy as soon as you get there. You shoot the guy who has your wife bent over a table. You don't ask questions. You don't say, 'Let's bargain.'" But it turns out his gun was empty. So he probably was thinking, all right, how can I get in close here? So then they do knock him out, and they leave then. And then I think Jamie even says, I don't know why, in his voiceover, I don't know why I didn't kill the guy. And it's just like, you should have. And I was just like, well, what's he going to do next? You've already been flogged. Claire, like the next day, she's like, oh, thanks, guys. Wasn't that crazy little adventure we had? And they're just like not talking to her. They tell Jamie, like, you need to go make this right for putting us in danger.
Yeah.
And then Jamie's like, well, I've got to spank my wife.
That's right.
Which is apparently the rule. And again, you can tell, like, this is some like S&M level of thing that the author has with this, because it's like,
and this is probably what was normal for the time, but Claire doesn't come
normal
from that time and is like, I'm not saying it's okay that it was normal for the time, but that's, Claire is like extremely upset that Jamie would do such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it turns out later Jamie is like apologizes for it and says he was wrong.
Yeah.
To do it.
So he does it, and then she's like pissed at him forever. And then there's this great scene that me and my girlfriend love when she goes to him then later on when they're doing some other thing, and she's like, you're a fucking sadist. Yeah. And he's like, and you're a foul-mouthed bitch.
He doesn't even know what sadist means.
I know. He's like, I don't even know those words. Just the two of them yelling at each other. But then they kind of come to like an understanding with that, like temporary wise. But then later on, after the witch trial, then Jamie and Claire get together and they talk about the future stuff. And she tells him there that she was from the future, and it lays it all out to him, who she really is, what really happened. And that's when, he apologizes then and says he's wrong.
It's so funny to me. Claire is so scared this whole time to say that what the truth is, like how she got there.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks people are going to think she's crazy, or I guess they're going to think she's a witch or something.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, or she thinks nobody's going to believe her. But at the same time, it's like, why? Like, they believe everything here at this time. They believe in fairies and all this stuff. So, like, why won't they believe if you're like, yo, I'm from the future? And you know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, I think they kind of hit on that, because I think it was one of the first few episodes when she has this dream with, I forget her name right now, the lady who looks after the place, though. She's like helping her dress, and she tells her, that's it, Fitzgibbons. Miss Fitzgibbons. She tells her, like, I'm from the future and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, Miss Fitzgibbons like, you witch, die, burn. And then she wakes up.
Yeah.
She's like,
that's true.
That's
so
probably
I better not tell him. Okay, fair enough.
I mean, but the same thing with Jamie, though. He's like, he's a golden boy. He's like the god of men. He knows how to fight, play chess. He loves to eat out.
Speaks French.
Speaks French.
Just to eat out. I thought you meant like
going out for dinner.
Yeah.
I tried to say it like that, and I could tell. I was like, yes, I got him.
Did you mention about how they decided not to kill Blackjack Randall at that scene?
Yeah, they just didn't.
Oh my God.
Because in Jamie's head, I can kind of see, because in his head, it's like, it's honorable to not kill a defenseless, unconscious man.
Yeah.
But in my head, I'm like, let's be efficient and take out a threat. And I guess I'm probably the worst guy for doing that, but it would have made more sense. But so later on, though, it all rounds around, and she ends up telling him this. After they have some makeup sex with a knife at Jamie's throat, or Claire finds this creepy doll under her bed. Turns out it's from Leary, because Leary is still jealous that she's with Jamie. She's even like tried to
wish.
Yeah, it's an ill wish. She even tried to offer herself to Jamie at one point, and he's like, nah.
Do you see my wife? She's like the only woman who doesn't have shit all over her. But so she's Leary is upset about it.
Props to the actress who plays Leary, because when she first started, she was like, she did seem like a nice girls next door looking kind of girl, and then like as soon as she like flips the crazy switch, she looks like a crazy chick.
Oh my God, she's crazy. And like she keeps telling Claire, she's like, Jamie and I are destined to be together. Claire hits her at one point too.
Yeah, she smacks her.
Something like that.
Because she calls her a whore or something too. And she's like, you deserve that smack, you bitch.
And Claire is like, I shouldn't have done that. I don't regret it, but I shouldn't have done that. She's like, Anyways, so she also she also had gone to Galus and trying to like figure out all this stuff about what is this thing, and I think she was told that Galus had sold it to somebody.
Yeah.
And while she was looking for Galus, she like encountered her husband who was like sick or something. He had the runs
he just
or something.
Farts all the time.
Oh my god! And he was like, she hasn't come back yet. So the housemaid told her where she was, and she goes, she's in the woods, and she's doing a very similar ritual thing to what Claire had witnessed at Craig Nadoon back in 1945.
Yeah, before she traveled back in time.
And she also sees because she's like naked. She's like, Galus takes her clothes off. She sees that she's pregnant. Okay, she's got a belly. And Galus like knew she was there.
Yeah.
So
Galus
they talk.
Too always has like these weird things, and she's always too. If you've seen the season, you obviously know she's from the future, but she's always like dropping subtle hints too. Like my second time through, I picked up on a little more. She's like, what are you really doing here, Claire? Yeah. Or just like, what's your purpose here, Claire? Or where are you from, Claire?
Yeah.
She's always dropping little hints.
Always dropping these hints. And as they're walking back, Claire's asking about the baby and everything. And she says she ends up revealing it's Dougal's kid. And that she's in love with Dougal. And Claire's like, what about your husband? And what about Dougal's wife? And she's like, oh, well, wouldn't that be a shame if something happened to them? And Dougal could be happy. It's like, holy crap.
Next day.
Yeah, anyway,
at a feast.
But as they're walking back, Claire hears a baby crying in the woods. And Galus is like, leave it. Like the fairies are going to get it. She basically explains the theory to Claire. She's like, when you have a child who is not like other kids or is unhealthy, and you leave it, and if the fairies take it, because if it dies, the fairies take it, right?
Yeah.
Or if it survives the night or something, like it's supposed to be cured or something.
Yeah. Like some sort of fairy exchange system with your child.
Right. Yeah.
But Claire gets there. She can't help it. She's a good healing person. And the kid's already cold and dead. And Jamie's just like, hey, like.
And she's like, but she decides to hug the kid.
Better.
Yeah. She hugs the kid and she's like so upset that a kid could die like this and was not given a chance, and she couldn't save it. And so then, yeah, you're right. Jamie came up, found her. I think he had run into Galus on the road, and she told him where she was. He like you said, he's like, maybe this is like their comfort, like it's better to think that it was a change. They call it a changeling.
Yeah.
Than that it just died.
Another cool Scottish mythos thing there.
Yeah.
Which I've seen in a couple other different cultures and stuff. Like I think it's even kind of influenced like this thing in the Witcher game too. But this was one moment though where later on this kind of comes back to bite Claire in the butt. And then another moment too is when she is trying to help this child who is sick, and that's right. Mrs. Fitzgibbon's grandson or nephew or something, and there's this priest, and the priest, I can't remember the actor's name, but he's the dick from the Night's Watch on Game of Thrones. Is the priest. He's like let's perform an exorcism, that's the only way. Right. And Claire's like, let's give him like some water and some rest and like maybe he'll get better then. And they're like, no. Yeah. And she ends up doing that and some other herbal recipes to make him feel better. And
the priest like swears vengeance on her or something like, oof.
So Claire's stirring up trouble here. She's talking with Galus, who everyone thinks is his witch. She's, like you said, she touched the child. Then eventually what Galus said about her husband, they're at a feast in front of everyone. Her husband just drops dead. Claire is like, that's instantly recognizes it as poison. And she also just pays attention because Galus is just like not shocked at all at first. She just kind of like looks at Dougal, and the both of them just lock eyes. And even like Colin McKenzie notices it too. He like sees that, and he puts it all together too. And then all of a sudden, Galus is like, no!
Right.
No! Right. Just like you just see her face change.
Yeah.
But so a bunch of these things are building up.
Yeah.
This then eventually leads to some police coming to get Galus.
And Claire happens to be there.
Yes, Claire gets lured there by Leary. A letter,
Larry left a note,
trying to make it come from Galus, though, saying, hey, come down here. And Jamie is away because him and Dougal got caught with the Jacobite stuff. So they're sent away right now. They're not there to help her out. So Leary then has Claire Bear there with Galus. The two of them get picked up by the police, and then they go to this witch trial because they're like, oh, she was with her. And then they can just tell they love having a good witch trial. They haven't had anyone to yell at in a while.
Right. So they put them in a hole in the ground. Galus believes that Dougal will come and protect them and save them from this trial. Mm-hmm. But what she doesn't know, and what Claire knows, is that Dougal and Jamie got punished by Colum because Colum found out about Galus Duncan. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, you're sadly mistaken, brother. That is Arthur Duncan's child. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you'll go back to his house, and Jamie, you'll go with him, separating Jamie and Claire. So there's nothing. There's like, no one's going to come, you think.
Yeah.
Except our bro, Ned Gowan, coming out. My guy! At the trial, he like pushes through. He's like, I represent the witches. I mean, the women.
No, I'm here for the witches, though. I mean, the women.
And it's pretty awesome because you have all these fanatical people coming out, like saying these crazy stories, like I saw her fly away, or crazy stuff. They're just lying. And he is such a good lawyer that he just like defends it like that.
Yeah, he's like, this was just stupid. And he puts together like, weren't you someone who was getting your rent squeezed or something like that by Galus's husband or something? Now you're just being a dick. And I was like, okay, I retract my statement. I'll leave.
And the crowd is like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Actually,
so it's working. It seems like it's working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's always like they'll say the craziest thing, and the crowd will be like, oh, it's just like, no, she turned him into a newt.
I got better.
Good old-fashioned witch trials.
Leary eventually shows up, and of course, she starts throwing that spite. And eventually, I think even he puts together, he's like, this is just a jaded lover or something here. Like, let's get this out. And
they even had the baby's mother said she saw Claire hold the child, and then she went and checked, and it was dead.
Yeah,
so
the changeling.
Yeah,
the changeling parents.
She interrupted the fairy exchange program.
You're thinking like, oh shit, this is pretty bad now with Leary, but there's some logic, some doubt. But then this priest comes, and it's the priest, and at first you're like, okay, this guy's helping. He's just like, I've never been able to. I felt so helpless, and she was able to heal him, and I couldn't. I'm gonna leave the churchhood, and you're just like, all right, this is a stand-up guy.
Okay, he's actually a good priest.
But then another guy puts it together as, what sort of evil would make a guy leave the priesthood? Witches!
And he looks at her like he knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, which is like, okay, it's a smart priest, evil priest, but a smart priest.
Evil priest.
He knows how to play on these people's emotions.
Yeah, and that pretty much seals the deal.
Yeah, it's pretty much over. And Ned's like, shoot, we're screwed. He takes the women back, and he's like, look, we have an option. If one of you admits to being the witch and renounces the other one, then we can save one of you, and it's better than both of you dying.
You can say you're under the spell.
They're pretty much both like, it should be Galus. Let's go. And Galus is like, oh.
And Claire's like, I don't want to do this. Let's just go out there.
Just go, and I can't make you do that.
And they're eventually going to burn them.
Yeah.
And then
Jamie, by the way, Claire just makes it so bad the whole time. Because like every time she gets frustrated and upset, she starts screaming at the top of her voice. And if I've ever heard a woman sound like a witch, like when she screams, it's bad. Like she sounds like,
I know, she sounds so like level and meticulous and rational when she just talks normally, but when she raises her voice, it sounds so crazy and emotional.
I know.
Like when Will Ferrell's yelling.
And Ned's like, just shut up, you're making it worse. Like, I'm not a witch. I'm not a witch. I'll curse you all.
Unlimited power.
I'm not a witch, but I'm going to put a curse on everybody.
But yeah, they go back out there basically for the sentencing.
Yeah, and
Jamie ends up showing up though.
Yeah, because they like rip Claire's back. They're gonna like flog her first, I think, and then
tenderize her.
Yeah,
before they burn her.
Yeah, you're right. And so
these are sick people back then.
Jamie
Isn't this
comes
crazy
in.
that this happened for real though? You know what I mean? Isn't this crazy?
Apparently, I read online that this didn't happen in Scotland at this time.
Well,
I read it did happen. Obviously, in the U.S., it happened.
Yeah,
witch trials did happen, but I read that
Salem.
was one inaccuracy. Is that like apparently in this time period, that kind of witch trial wouldn't have happened.
I think Ned says something too about that, doesn't he? He's like, well, the kings, and isn't this a land under the king? Then I think
I think witch trials have been outlawed or something, and and like you couldn't try someone as a witch anymore.
I think they say some sort of loophole for the.
So maybe you're right.
But I don't. Again, it doesn't mean that it happened at the time. But I think they were just for the sake of the story wanted this to happen.
For the story, yeah, exactly.
It's still crazy that this was. It's whatever point in time that this would happen.
Yeah, and, but that kind of stuff did happen, and it's like a lose-lose. Like no matter what the woman says, people are gonna just be like, find a way to twist that into being. Even the priest is like, she's a good healer, a good person, where I was not. And everybody's just like, she corrupted him. She put a spell on him. It's the only explanation.
It's Twitter logic. Logic.
It's crazy that stuff actually happened, man. But
yeah, Jamie breaks in. He's like, another man puts a hand on my wife will be the first one down. And I was just like, yeah. But I mean, there's less like everyone in there is like just wants blood. Like he can't kill everyone. Galus then sacrifices herself. She's like, look, this is the mark of the devil.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, oh, maybe is it? Because like there has been some other fantasy things. And I'm someone who hasn't had the smallpox vaccination. So I don't recognize.
Well, I recognized it. Yeah. I was like,
my mom has it. And after
my mom
they
has
said it,
and
I knew what it was. But when I first saw it, I was like, oh, because I was like, they did travel in time. We've seen things with people dancing and magic and stuff. Maybe this is going to be that other fantasy connection. Maybe she is some sort of witch. But it doesn't mean she's evil. But anyway, though, it turns out, though, that is a smallpox vaccination.
Right. Which means
Mark, she was from the future.
She had said something else to Claire right before that, too. What did she say to her?
I think she
something
said
that
something
gave it
like,
away.
You got to tell me why you're here. Like, what are you doing here? Are you going to try and change something? I think she was basically
she said 1969 or something before. Or it was 68 or something. She said the year.
Yeah, she doesn't
before
say she's from 1960, I think, until...
She doesn't say she's from there, but she just says the year. She says 1968. Like right before she admits.
Right. She gives her a hint. But she's also like, tell me you're going to change something.
Claire still didn't put it together, though. It was all happening so fast until she saw the smallpox. I didn't either until I saw that. And Claire's like, I saw the smallpox vaccine. That was pretty insane. I was like, mind-blowing moment. Like, whoa. And then I think when you
I have the child of the devil in me. And she like pulls up, she's pregnant. And everyone's like, oh, dear God.
Oh, let's get her now. Let's go burn her now. Let's not even... But
it's not tenderizer.
If you listen carefully, you hear one of the judges yelling, "That woman's pregnant." He's like, "Wait, she's pregnant. Wait, she's pregnant."
Oh, you do? Oh, so there's one good person there. Yeah, there's at least one good guy there yelling.
But the judge yells, "She's pregnant. She's pregnant," as he's leaving. They leave, and you just see Galus getting carried off in a parade to burn her, and Claire's like distraught, and that's when Jamie takes her out to the woods, and Claire opens up about everything.
Yeah.
And Jamie's just like, I believe you. No.
Like, and
that
was fine with me, but what kind of made it go into the cheesy territory was when he was just like, there was some other point where he's just like, oh yeah, it wasn't this moment, but there was another point where she tells him something, and he says, I told you I would never doubt you ever again. and he's just like,
yeah.
That's, like, come on.
It was satisfying. It was like, finally, somebody knows the whole story.
Yeah.
And can like sympathize with her fully now.
Yeah.
You know? So that was great. And it's Jamie, and it's great. So
they decide they need some R&R after. You're my wife. Now we know the truth. We're in love. Actually, he offers to take her back to the Stones. I forgot this. And before he sends her on her way, he gives her a good fingering by the fireside the night before. And then she goes. You're thinking she's going to go through. He goes away. He's back at the fire, and she comes back to him. And then he's like, well, let's go to Lollybrook then. So they go to his old farm, Lollybrook. Mm-hmm. They meet his sister there, Jenny Fraser Murray, and her husband, Ian Murray. And he sees she's pregnant.
But Jamie's last impression of his sister was that she like let Black Jack Randall
have his way with her.
And that the child must be Jack Randall's kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's what he was thinking when he first saw her. So he was like, as soon as he first saw her, he was like, hey, sis. He was like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's like a really rough interaction because she's like so happy to see him.
Yeah.
But he immediately pisses her off by like accusing her of that. And then she explains the whole story we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And Jamie's like, oh, well, it'd have been nice to know that. I mean, could have, but he hadn't seen her.
Yeah. And they didn't have Facebook. Anyway,
we meet her husband. Yeah.
Yeah. We see Ian here.
Who is just another character who is such a good guy through and through. Like good always bro. Good. Always good.
He's another bro of Jamie where they've had this awesome bond where
the two of them together and they fought in France together, I think.
Yeah. They were soldiers there.
Ian lost his leg.
Yeah.
And he walks in with like a wooden leg. It's got like a handle on it so he can like pick it up.
I was like, that's pretty handy there. That's pretty handy to have.
Pretty cool. So we learn about Ian and he's happy to see Jamie and, Jenny and Jamie are,
and then Jenny is like super bitchy with Claire too. And just like, what are you being mean to Claire Bear for? But again, Claire's sort of stepping over what the rules are for the time and the expectations of different family members. Right now, it's brother and sister talking. You don't talk, And she's just like, yeah, Jamie, you should have done what she said. Even though she's agreeing with her. She's like, you don't talk yet. I don't know you. But eventually they start to bond some.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Jenny sees his scars on his back, on Jamie's back, and then starts to sort of forgive him for everything he's gone through. One morning, then, Jamie's just going downstairs, and there's a gun at his head, and it's from these Raider guys.
Is his name McQuarrie?
So they defuse it at the beginning of the next episode. Jenny's just like, hey, that's my brother. What are you doing? Right. Or my cousin or something. I think they don't say who he actually is because he still has the bounty on him. But I was just like, what are you doing in someone else's house pulling a gun on someone? Obviously, he belongs there. He's walking around, clothed normally. He's walking around. People aren't saying anything weird. Why are you pulling a gun? You're the messed up dude. Anyway, these guys are being jerks. There's this whole thing where Jamie has to beat them up. They see he's a skilled fighter. Also, because
they're just burning grain. They're just
this guy was a douche.
Oh my god,
that guy deserved it. Later on, they get another guy in their crew who's an Irishman. That
Horrocks is his name.
Yeah, that's the guy that Jamie was gonna buy the information from, but then he had to go save his wife
earlier. And so Horrocks is kind of a what do you call it? A rogue character. He's kind of on his own, and he does what's in his best interest. And he knows Jamie's a wanted man.
Mm-hmm.
And they were lying about who Jamie was to this McQuarrie guy who came in and his crew. Yeah. And so he basically blackmails Jamie.
Give me all this money if you want me to stay silent about who you are.
Yeah, because I'll go to Boston and I won't bother you. And Jamie is like, okay, I'm going to give you the money and you're going to leave. But then he keeps asking for more. It's like becoming impossible.
So they meet him out in the woods, and Ian actually stabs the guy through the back.
Oh my God, it was nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then this guy's now dead. They go back to the house, and the main raider dude is going on another job. He's like, hey, we're a guy short. Now I don't care.
And he keeps questioning him about Horrocks. He's like, it's weird. He's not one to not show up when he's,
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it's kind of strange he hasn't shown up yet. You sure you haven't seen him anywhere?
And Jamie's like, well, I killed him.
Yeah.
He's like, I killed him.
And the reaction of McQuarrie is kind of like laughs or something.
He's like, good.
But then he's like, pretty much forces him. He's like, well, then you're going to have to join us on our
job.
Yeah. And Ian too.
Well, Ian just goes along.
Well, he goes along
with just to protect Jamie, I think.
Yeah.
I think they just want him. But so they go do this job.
And they get freaking ambushed.
Of course, they just get ambushed.
We don't really see it too much. We just kind of see the guns pulled and we see the aftermath.
Yeah, it cuts away. And only Ian and one other guy make it back.
And it's not Jamie.
No, it's not Jamie. Not the leader.
And you see Claire like looking for him, and he's not there. And
so then next we get Claire Bear and Jenny going on a good old Jamie hunt.
Yes,
there's some bonding, some interrogating, some milking. I don't know.
Never gonna get that.
That was just so wild to see. And again, someone's gonna be like, "It's natural." I'm not saying it's not natural. I just wasn't ready for it. And
it wasn't. And they just like
I've never ever
seen
seen it in my whole life before. And she's just like, "Oh God!" I can understand it would probably be super annoying just having your breast full of too much milk. I can't relate, but it's just like you also. Like when you first, if you were to like see a guy taking a leak in a show, you're gonna be like, "Ugh, that's kind of it's gonna jar you." This is even another step, but because I haven't seen anyone milking themselves in a show.
Yeah, they go out and they end up finding the McQuarrie guy. They decide they can't really go and get him in that situation, but they go and they take the messenger, Jenny and Claire.
Yeah,
they get the messenger. And Claire, they're torturing him, and Claire's like, "Oh my God!" And Jenny's like, "What? This is like normal torture techniques."
This is like not even that bad."
And so
just burning his feet,
tortures him, and then they go and she's like, "We have to kill him, right?" And Claire's like, "No." And they find out that Jamie had like gotten away.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, he was a messenger, so they opened the letter and found that.
Yeah,
and then. They're like, oh, we can't. They were arguing about whether to kill him or not. Jenny was for it. Claire was not. Murtaugh comes up and just like, I'll do it.
Yeah, out of nowhere, Murtaugh coming through, doing the bro thing.
He didn't even know what they were doing. He was just like, a red coat.
Jenny decides she needs to leave and go back. And Murtaugh and Claire are like, we need to find Jamie, but the only way we can do it is like if he comes to us.
Because he's in hiding now.
He's in hiding. So if we go and you practice your healing around, word will get out that there's an amazing woman healer, and he'll put 2 and 2 together and come and find us. And so they do this. We get this whole wacky kind of scenario where they go.
And then he's like, well, obviously, if you start healing, he'll know that. But to make it even more noticeable, I'll do dancing.
Yeah, I'll be the best. And he thinks he's so good. He's so bad, and everybody hates him. I feel so bad for him.
I don't see how he's bad. I don't know enough about it.
I don't know enough about it.
But like,
when they had the other guy, when they had the other like minstrel guy do it, he was like pretty good.
The other guy you could tell was really good.
Also, Claire, they're like talking about it, and she's like, what if you need like a song? Like, what if you did a song? And she starts singing just to Murtaugh.
Yeah, and
she sings a song from her time period.
Mm-hmm.
It's the oogie boogie. I don't know the words.
Yeah. Oogie boogie doodle little.
And it's like, Murtaugh is like, what is this alien music? No, but he thinks it's good. Yeah. He's just never heard anything like it before. And he's like, whoa, okay.
We need to swap that out with some real Scottish lyrics, okay?
Yes.
I don't know what that oogie boogie is.
Yeah. And so they do. And she's like the Sassenach or something.
Yeah.
And she sings a song. And she's like a good singer.
Mm-hmm.
And the crowd likes it because it's a song they've never heard before. And then you just see this gypsy guy standing on the wall looking all sour-faced. And I'm like, oh, crap, who's this guy?
Yeah.
And these are actually really talented musicians. And they steal the song. They have this other girl sing it, and she's so much better. It's like, she's like done it her whole life, singing like this. And they get really mad. They're like, and they explain to the gypsy, like, the reason we're doing this is to find my husband. Like, it's for love. And he's like, I'll stop doing it for like $1 million. Or something. No, but they basically pay him off. And Murtaugh's like, it's a gypsy. Like, he's still going to do it. You just gave him like all your money and he's still going to do it. So they keep going around, and sure enough, they encounter them later and they're still doing it.
Well, before that too, one of the big things that happens is they're not getting anywhere because this is obviously just a shitty plan. Just a really shitty plan.
Yeah.
It's just the worst plan ever. She questions Murtaugh's love of Jamie, and she's like, you don't love him as much as I do, and maybe you're not trying hard enough. And he confesses not only is he the godfather, but he used to love Jamie's mother.
Right.
And that he had made her this ivory bracelet, or not an ivory, it was like a horn, I think, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pretty sweet looking bracelet. And then Claire's like, oh shit, I just got this from Jenny. It was a gift to their mother. And he's like, oh great, awesome. And so it was a pretty cool moment fleshing out Murtaugh there.
Yep.
And just seeing how much of a bro he is, and Claire getting to see that, she's like, oh, I'm sorry. You're a bro.
Yeah.
And then they run back into the gypsy, and he's like, yeah, I didn't stop. Like, I totally didn't. But there's this giant ginger guy who came here matching the description of the guy who won. I'll tell you where he was at last. And then turns out he's captured at Fort William. So the whole time it just led back to him being captured. It was like when you're watching Last Jedi and they're like, we got to get on here and we got to disable this so the shields are down. And then they go somewhere else and they get back there and it doesn't matter that they didn't have the right hacker for the codes anyways. Right. I was kind of like, well, he was captured the whole time anyways. What was this whole side quest episode about? I liked the Murtaugh backstory, but I was just like,
I did like the Murtaugh backstory. I know. I didn't need the whole singing. That's just my opinion. It wasn't my favorite part of the show when they did the whole singing and dancing stuff over and over again. But
I was like, the healer thing makes sense, but what does the singing woman?
I know.
How would Jamie be like, that's got to be my wife? She's never ever sung before. You know?
I know.
I don't know. Maybe in the books, maybe it was more fleshed out. Why?
Yeah. So anyway, they find out where Jamie is, and they're like, well, we need to break into this place. And this is when Claire tries to convince Rupert and Angus to do it.
And it's actually Willie.
Like, yeah, but they're like, no.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely not. Like, that's suicide. And it kind of like, I'm like, but it's Jamie. Oh, we forgot a big part. Also, there's a time when somebody is like, they take Claire and Murtaugh to this place because they heard it was Jamie, and it turns out to be Dougal.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And Dougal basically proposes to Claire that, like, look, Jamie's going to get killed. You should just marry me. I'll protect you, and I'll make sure you live a good, comfortable life. He's basically saying, because if not, you're screwed, basically,
Yeah.
And he's not even going to try. She's like, you're not even going to try to save him? Your nephew? Like, you're not even going to give it a shot?
Oh, this is where she gets the information from, I think.
Yeah, and that's where she gets the information.
She trades, because he's like, well, I'll tell you where he's at, but if he's already dead, then you have to marry me. That's the bargain.
Yeah. Yep.
And she's like, all right, yeah, I'll make that deal. Yeah, sure. So it's just like, again, Dougal, you're like, what, Dougal, what are you doing? This is Jamie.
And then he like says something to her like, I won't force any of my men to help you.
Yeah.
But I also won't stop them if they choose to go on their own. And that's when she goes and confronts.
Did she go to the fort by herself? Because I remember she went to the fort by herself at some point.
She did go to the fort with Murtaugh.
I think she was trying to like politically get him out somehow. And then she finds out where he is. And he's in this creepy dungeon. Jamie is. And tries to get him out. And of course, Randall shows up. And he's got this.
Well, Randall showed up like right as he was about to get killed. McQuarrie just got hanged. And It was like, James Fraser, it's your turn.
Mm-hmm.
He goes up, he's got the noose around him, and Blackjack Randall comes and saves the day for once. Although Jamie might have preferred the noose for
I
what
think I would have
happens
just
to him,
took the noose.
but-
I was like, don't listen to that guy.
He's like, don't hurt my boy toy. He's like, he comes in and he takes him down and he's like, put him in a cell.
As soon as I would have seen
jumped
Randall,
off.
I would have been like, yoink! Or I would have just done something that they're like, no way, we can't let this guy go. I would have been like, screw the king, fuck King George.
Yeah, he puts him in the cell. Yeah, but then Claire goes and she tries to ask the guys to help break Jamie out, and they're really reluctant. But it's Willie who's like, "I'll do it."
Mm.
And then Rupert is like, "Well, I can't let him have all the fun. I'll go too." And Angus, and they end up agreeing.
Yeah, and she's there first though, and this is the last 2 episodes. I'm on my second watch through now of the show. When I was going through season 1, I just skipped the last 2 episodes because I knew what happened, and the second to last episode, I mean, it is just a torture fest like the whole time. It's just
like, so let's go into it. Let's go into it in explicit detail.
I mean, at one point,
Blackjack Randall comes in.
Yeah, and you think Jamie's gonna escape at one point. He like kills the big dude. He like lunges away, and you're like, here we go. And then of course, like other guards come down, and Randall's like, stay away, like, and I mean, it's just like beating her, beating him, hurting his hand more and more, and then
so he like breaks his hand, and then nails it to the table.
Yeah, just a hammer to it, and it's just
right in front of her.
It is,
and he basically with her there, he like basically makes Jamie agree. He's like, I'll let her go if you just give in to me. You just surrender yourself to me completely.
Surrender your body to me, is what he says.
So Jamie only does it to protect Claire.
He says, I promise to do that. And he's like, can I test your promise? Then he stabs his hand through. And it's just like, oh, God. And then he throws Claire out of the fort.
Yeah.
Before that happens, though, she tells him, she whispers when he's going to die.
Yes.
I was like, can I please hear it? Can I please hear that it's going to be in like 3 minutes from now?
I know. And he looks at her like crazy, but then he throws her out and he goes back in. And he just does horrible things to Jamie.
He
uses lavender, too.
Yeah, it's
he
like his
bathes
perfume.
Jamie. He says something like, wow, you are like the perfect specimen or something. Or he's like admiring the scars on the back and all. He has his way. He does whatever he wants with Jamie.
Yeah, and then that's pretty much where that episode ends. She starts to try and get the boys together to try and get another way to break him out. It is just too much torture. And then it starts with rape at the end of this one. And then the next episode, the last episode of the season, picks up and is just like him broken. And they just the whole time, people are like, oh, it's because it's a guy getting raped. Maybe partly that. Anytime I see anyone get raped in a show or movie, it makes me uncomfortable for like
I don't
days.
think it matters that it's just a guy.
Days. It makes me uncomfortable.
It's not so much. Yeah, it's not even that it's a guy on guy. It's just horrible.
It's first of all, it's the hero, and it's like
it's like
Jamie, Batman getting raped. It's like Jon Snow getting raped.
You don't like to see that it pretty much it did break him too. It broke him mentally and emotionally.
And it's the whole episode. It's like the whole
it went on
episode.
For a long time.
They just keep cutting back and forth and back and forth.
Anyway, they got him out though.
They get him out. They use cows to get him out.
Yes, the best defense.
The cows write this letter urging the king.
The cows,
they're like, we're going to stop putting out milk for you bastards.
The cows are like, we're going to lay siege to this fort. They just storm in.
We're going to go on strike.
Yeah. So like Blackjack Randall gets up in the morning or something, and he's like, after they're both laying naked on the bed, and he goes in and he's like, what's that sound? And he goes to the door, and the cows like run him over. The door collapses on him. And Murtaugh like steps through and like looks at him, and he's just like, okay, good. He must be dead or something. Let's go. Just kill the dude. Oh my God.
Stab him.
Stab him.
Get something sharp. Find a soft spot anywhere.
I know, but
Make
they don't.
Sure.
They don't. They get Jamie out. They get him to Claire at like a church or something they take refuge at, and then Claire like sets his hand back, bandages it, everything you need to do. But he is like, he wants to kill himself. He wants to die. Like he's
refusing food.
And Claire like has to go, and he like won't talk about what happened. Claire like has to get dark, she decides, because she's tried everything.
She's tried being nice to him to get him open up. So
yeah.
she starts being mean to him, basically.
Yeah, and it works.
And he tells her everything. And the big thing for him was not only just getting raped for however long he was in there, but also that at one point when Randall is being nicer to him, that he enjoys himself because it's just something different than pain. And
yes, yeah, exactly. And he's delirious too. So the way they do the clip, it's like he's imagining it's Claire.
I just fast forward through this.
Okay, so
all the scenes, like I have not seen. I would just see like skin and the two of them every now and then. I would just fast forward right
he
through.
Kept seeing
the first time watching through. The second time, I just skipped the whole episode.
So Randall put like lavender on himself, and he kept like saying Claire's name during these scenes.
Yeah,
and so Jamie and they kept showing Jamie's vision, and it would be like, it would start as Randall's face, but then it would like turn into Claire or vice versa. So Jamie kept thinking of Claire during the whole scene that he was getting.
So that was like a survival technique for him. You know?
But you're right. He kind of, he admits it kind of felt good at some points, and it was because it wasn't pain.
And he broke is the other thing. He actually broke. He was able to take a second flogging for hours without breaking, but then this time he broke. So he just felt ashamed and betrayed and weak. And like after the last episode where it was just like constant torture and like threat of sexual violence, and then it ended with some sexual violence, and then this one was literally sexual violence the whole time, I was ready to stop the show.
Yeah.
Like if you would have just alluded to it, you showed it maybe a little bit for once, it wouldn't have been that bad. But I mean, it was the entire episode. The entire episode kept cutting to this.
Yeah. So anyway,
I said, I didn't even watch it. I fast forward through it.
Yeah.
Like the minute it would like start to come on, I'd be like, fast forward. But I would still see enough, and my imagination would fill in the gaps that it was still too much for me, you know?
Yeah, so it was rough. They end up deciding to do, once Jamie is starting to come around, she gets kind of in the dark with him and kind of makes him realize it can get better. They decide they're going to leave. They're going to go to France.
Turns out she's pregnant.
Yeah. And
she's like, well, hey, the Jacobite rebellion and all the people we love are going to die unless we try and do something about it. I know the future.
So, so they decide they're going to go to France, and Jamie, you can see, is still a little broken, and it's going to take time to heal from this. And as they get on the ship, Angus asks for a kiss, and he kisses Angus, and Rupert says goodbye, and it's just like, oh man, it's hitting home. And they get on the ship. Claire tells Jamie she's pregnant. That's what Jamie needed to hear. And he like,
something new.
And
it's just them and Murtaugh going.
Yep.
So, and that's where we end. Like I said, I really love the shows. Most of the drama. I like the action end of it. I like the Scottish elements and the Gaelic and the limited fantasy part of it.
I love her being able to come back and applying all these medical techniques that haven't been invented yet, or knowing the herbs and knowing the science behind things that these people don't. So that was really cool. I love that aspect too. I thought it was really cool.
Definitely.
But overall, it was a great show. Really rough ending to a season.
Like I said, I was ready to quit after this. And I think some people are like, well, it's because it was a man and you're a man. It has nothing. No, if Claire was getting raped for a full episode at the beginning of the show.
Oh, it's too rough.
And after a whole episode of like torture, it wouldn't have mattered who it was. It could have been Angus. No. It could have been Miss Fitzgibbons. I don't care. Like, I was ready to stop.
But I think the show does an interesting thing of showing men, this thing's happening to men, which we don't see that in shows a lot.
No.
And it can happen. Obviously, we think about it more with women, but so it's an interesting twist to see how the men deal with it too. And trauma, I mean, we all deal with it differently, but tough stuff.
I like how they handle it, because I was just like, and I think it's kind of even a reflection on us, because even in my head, I was like, well, now he's broken forever. The hero, he can't be Aragon again after this.
And he got branded by Randall.
Yeah. Oh, they cut that off
and they
too.
cut it off because he's like, he owns me now. He got the brand. Like, you can't undo a brand. He's like, and Claire's like, oh yeah, we're gonna cut that right off.
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Without spoilers for any other future season, I like how they handle it, and I kind of like how he handles it.
Totally.
To some degree. That was season 1. And
season 1. Tell us your thoughts on the season. And I'm sure there's so many details in these 16 episodes. We did our best to get through them and not take all day, but
we did.
We did. Let us know what you thought. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll be back with you for season 2 and the rest of the seasons.
It's like we always say.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.